The champagne flutes trembled in the hands of 200 guests as Vivienne Frost, 65 years old and worth 4.7 billion, locked eyes with her new husband, a 29-year-old man named Damien Cole, who'd been working in her company's mailroom just 8 months ago. The silence in the grand ballroom of her Swiss estate was deafening. Someone dropped a fork. It clattered against marble like a gunshot. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said, his voice barely concealing his own disbelief. Vivienne's blood-red lips curved into a smile that could cut glass. She wore a white Valentino gown that cost more than most people's houses. Her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamonds dripping from her ears and throat like frozen tears. She looked regal, untouchable, and absolutely, magnificently dangerous. Damien, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair and emerald eyes that seemed to hold secrets, leaned down to kiss her. The crowd erupted into polite applause that felt hollow, performative. In the third row, Vivienne's daughter Cassandra, 42, immaculately dressed and seething with barely contained rage, stood abruptly and walked out. Her heels struck the floor like hammer blows. Her brother Julian followed, his face a mask of disgust. The wedding planner whispered to her assistant, "This is going to be a disaster." She had no idea how right she was, but this wasn't just a scandal. This was a chess game. And Vivienne Frost had been playing chess since before most of these people were born. The reception was held in Vivienne's private ballroom, a cathedral of wealth with crystal chandeliers that had once hung in a Russian palace. Walls lined with original Monets and Renoir, and windows overlooking the snow-capped peaks of the Alps. The guest list read like a Forbes magazine spread: tech moguls, oil magnates, fashion empire owners, and old-money aristocrats who trace their lineage back to medieval kings. They all came for the same reason: to witness the spectacle, to see if the legendary Vivienne Frost had finally lost her mind. Vivienne stood at the center of it all, Damien's hand resting on the small of her back, and she felt their stares like knives. She'd felt worse. She'd been a 23-year-old secretary when she married her first husband, Gregory Frost, a man twice her age who owned a struggling pharmaceutical company. Everyone had called her a gold digger then too. She'd turned that struggling company into a pharmaceutical empire worth billions. Gregory had died 15 years ago, and she'd multiplied their wealth 5 times over since then. Let them stare. Let them whisper. She'd built empires while they spent their inheritances on yachts and cocaine. "You're enjoying this," Damien murmured in her ear, his breath warm against her neck. "Every second," she replied, her voice like aged whiskey, smooth, intoxicating, with a burn that came later. "Your children hate me." "My children hate everyone. It's their defining characteristic." Damien laughed, and the sound was genuine, unexpected. Several heads turned. Vivienne caught the eye of her son Julian across the room. He was 45, running the European division of Frost Pharmaceuticals, and he looked at Damien the way one might look at a tumor. Cassandra had returned, champagne in hand, her expression a careful blank. She'd inherited her mother's bone structure and her father's cruelty. She ran the American operations and did it brilliantly. She was also, Vivienne knew, already plotting. "They think you're using me," Vivienne said softly. "Aren't I?" Damien's smile was crooked, boyish, disarming? That's the question everyone's asking. But here's what they didn't know. Vivienne wasn't the one being played, and the truth about Damien Cole would shatter everything they thought they knew about power, love, and revenge. The toast came from an unexpected source. Victoria Beaumont, Vivienne's oldest friend and rival, a 70-year-old hotel heiress with a face preserved by the best surgeons money could buy and a tongue sharp enough to draw blood. Victoria stood, champagne glass raised, her smile predatory. To Vivienne and Damien, she began, her voice carrying across the room like a clarion call. May their love be as enduring as Vivienne's business sense, as genuine as Damien's credentials, and as scandalous as this entire affair promises to be. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd, nervous and uncertain. I've known Vivienne for 40 years, Victoria continued. I've seen her build an empire, raise 2 children, and destroy anyone foolish enough to underestimate her. So I say this to young Damien. She turned her gaze on him, and it was like watching a snake size up a mouse. Welcome to the Frost family. I hope you have excellent life insurance. The room erupted into genuine laughter this time. Damien raised his own glass, unfazed. Thank you, Victoria. I'll take that advice to heart. Though I have to say, the most dangerous person I've ever met is standing right next to me, and I married her anyway. I must be either very brave or very stupid. Or very calculating, Cassandra muttered, loud enough to be heard. Vivienne's eyes flickered to her daughter. Careful, darling. Your jealousy is showing. Jealousy? Cassandra laughed, brittle and sharp. Of what? A boy toy? Please, Mother, we both know what this is. Do we? Vivienne's voice dropped to a register that made everyone nearby unconsciously step back. Enlighten me. And if you're wondering how this family drama is going to explode, trust me, you'll want to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what happens next will make this wedding look like a tea party. Cassandra set her champagne glass down with deliberate precision. You're 65 years old, Mother. He's 29. Do the math. He's after your money, your company, your legacy, and you're too proud or too senile to see it. The ballroom went silent. Even the string quartet stopped playing. Vivienne smiled. It was the smile of a woman who'd eaten competitors for breakfast and never gained a pound. Senile? Darling, I just closed a $12 billion merger last week. My mind is sharper than it's ever been. As for Damien, she turned to her new husband, her expression softening in a way that seemed almost genuine. He's not after my money. He already has his own. That got their attention. Murmurs spread like wildfire. What? Julian stepped forward, his face reddening. What are you talking about? Vivienne's smile widened. Did I forget to mention? Damien isn't who you think he is. He's not just some pretty face I plucked from obscurity. She paused for effect, savoring the moment. Damien Cole is the founder and CEO of Neurotech Solutions. Perhaps you've heard of it? The biotech startup that just developed the breakthrough Alzheimer's treatment? The one we've been trying to acquire for the past year. The room exploded into chaos. Voices overlapped, shocked and disbelieving. Julian's face went from red to purple. That's impossible. Neurotech's founder is listed as DC Morgan. We've been negotiating with their representatives for months. DC Morgan, Damien Cole Morgan, he goes by his middle and last names professionally. Vivienne's voice cut through the noise like a blade. His father was Cole Morgan, the venture capitalist. His mother was Isabelle Duchamp, the French neuroscientist. He's worth approximately $800 million, give or take. And before you start calculating, yes, that means my new husband is nearly a billionaire in his own right. Cassandra's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. No one moved to clean it up. Damien stepped forward, his boyish charm replaced by something harder, more commanding. "Surprise," he said quietly. "I know what you all thought, what you all assumed. A mailroom clerk who seduced a billionaire, a gold digger, a con artist. But here's the thing about assumptions. They make you sloppy. They make you underestimate people. And in business," his eyes found Julian's. "That's fatal." What no one in that ballroom knew was that this marriage wasn't about love. It wasn't about money. It was about something far more dangerous: revenge. 6 months earlier, Damien Cole Morgan had stood in the lobby of Frost Pharmaceutical's headquarters in Geneva, wearing a mailroom uniform and carrying a carefully forged employment record. His dark hair was longer then, his face hidden behind thick-rimmed glasses that weren't prescription. He looked forgettable, invisible. That was the point. He'd spent 2 years planning this, 2 years researching every aspect of Frost Pharmaceuticals, every detail of Vivienne Frost's life, every vulnerability in her empire. He'd studied her children, her business partners, her rivals. He'd learned her patterns, her preferences, her secrets, and he'd learned about the thing she'd hidden for 30 years, the thing that would destroy her if it ever came to light. The thing that had destroyed his mother. Isabelle Duchamp had been a brilliant neuroscientist working for Frost Pharmaceuticals in the 1990s. She developed a revolutionary treatment for Parkinson's disease, something that could have changed millions of lives. But when she'd presented her research to Vivienne Frost, something had gone wrong. The research had been buried. Isabelle had been fired, blacklisted, her reputation destroyed. She died 5 years ago, broken and forgotten, her life's work stolen and hidden away in Frost Pharmaceuticals' archives. Damien had been 17 when she died. He'd held her hand in that charity hospital room, listening to her delirious rambling about the research that had been stolen, the woman who destroyed her. Vivienne Frost, his mother had whispered, her voice hoarse. She took everything. She took my work. She took my future. She died before finishing the sentence. Damien had spent the next 12 years building his own fortune, creating his own biotech company, waiting for the right moment. And then he discovered something in his mother's old notes, something that changed everything. His mother's research hadn't just been buried. It had been used, modified, twisted into something darker. Frost Pharmaceuticals' blockbuster drug, Synaptrol, the medication that had generated $40 billion in revenue over the past 15 years, it was based on his mother's stolen research. But there was a problem, a fatal flaw, and Vivienne Frost knew about it. Synaptrol was killing people, slowly, subtly, in ways that looked like natural causes, and Vivienne had known for years. Damien's plan was simple: marry the enemy, destroy her from the inside, and expose the truth that would bring down her empire. But he made one critical mistake. He underestimated Vivienne Frost. Their first real conversation had happened in an elevator. Damien had timed it perfectly. He knew Vivienne's schedule down to the minute. He knew she took the private elevator from her penthouse office at exactly 7:47 p.m. every Thursday. He knew she'd be alone. He'd slipped into the elevator just as the doors were closing, arms full of mail packages, playing the clumsy mailroom clerk. "Sorry," he'd mumbled, adjusting his glasses, keeping his head down. Vivienne had barely glanced at him. She was reading something on her tablet, her expression focused, fierce. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a car, her silver hair pulled back, minimal jewelry except for a massive diamond ring that had belonged to her mother. The elevator descended in silence. Then Damien had accidentally dropped one of the packages. Papers scattered across the elevator floor, deliberately chosen documents that he'd carefully placed in the package. Financial reports, internal memos, things that would catch Vivienne's eye. He'd knelt to gather them, and Vivienne had knelt too, automatically helping. Her hand had touched one of the documents, a memo about Synaptrol's adverse effects in elderly patients. She'd frozen. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Damien had seen something flicker across her face. Not fear, not guilt. Something more complex. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. "Interesting reading material for the mailroom," she'd said softly. "It was misfiled," Damien had replied, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I was returning it to the proper department." "Were you?" She'd held his gaze, and he'd felt exposed, naked, as if she could see through his disguise to the rage and grief beneath. "What's your name?" "Daniel. Daniel Morrison." The fake name had rolled off his tongue smoothly. "You're new." "3 weeks. Before this, you worked retail, coffee shops, odd jobs, all lies, carefully documented." Vivienne had handed him the documents, her fingers lingering for just a moment. "You have kind eyes, Daniel, and careful hands. Those are rare qualities." The elevator doors had opened. She'd walked out without looking back. But the next day, Damien had been summoned to her office. What Vivienne Frost had seen in that elevator wasn't an accident. And what she was about to offer Damien would change everything, for both of them. Vivienne's office was more like a throne room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Geneva, priceless art on the walls, furniture that belonged in museums, and Vivienne herself, seated behind a desk made from a single piece of rare black walnut, looking at him with eyes that missed nothing. "Sit," she'd said. Damien had sat, maintaining his nervous mailroom clerk persona. "I ran a background check on you last night," Vivienne had said casually, as if discussing the weather. "Daniel Morrison, 29 years old, no criminal record, no college degree, bounced around minimum wage jobs for the past decade, unremarkable in every way." Damien's heart had hammered, but he'd kept his expression neutral. "Except," Vivienne continued, leaning forward, "Daniel Morrison doesn't exist. Oh, the paperwork exists. The employment history exists. Someone went to a lot of trouble to create this identity. But the man behind it?" She smiled. "That's what interests me." Damien had felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. His carefully constructed cover was blown. Years of planning, gone in a single background check. But he'd underestimated her. Again. "I'm going to make you an offer," Vivienne had said. "You can either tell me who you really are and why you're here, or you can walk out that door right now and disappear." If you choose the latter, I'll have your real identity within 24 hours anyway. If you choose the former, we might be able to help each other. Help each other? Damien had dropped the act, his voice losing its uncertain edge. What makes you think I want to help you? Because you went to enormous effort to get inside my company. That suggests you want something from me. Information, probably, or revenge. Her eyes had glittered. My money's on revenge. You have that look. I recognize it because I've worn it myself. They'd stared at each other across that massive desk. And then Damien had done something he hadn't planned. Something that went against every careful calculation. He'd told her the truth. My name is Damien Cole Morgan, he'd said quietly. My mother was Isabelle Duchamp, and you destroyed her. Vivienne hadn't flinched, hadn't shown surprise. Isabelle, she'd said softly, and there was something in her voice. Grief, regret. I wondered if you'd come eventually. You have her eyes. You stole her research. You blacklisted her. You ruined her life. Is that what she told you? That's what the evidence shows. Vivienne had stood, walked to the window, her back to him. For a long moment, she'd been silent. Then, your mother was brilliant, possibly the most brilliant scientist I've ever met. Her research was revolutionary, and I did bury it. Do you know why? Because you wanted to steal it. Because it was incomplete. Because it was dangerous. Vivienne had turned, and her face was harder than granite. Your mother discovered something groundbreaking, yes, but she also discovered something terrible, a side effect, a flaw in her treatment that would have killed people. I saw the data. I confronted her, and she refused to believe it. She wanted to rush to market, to get the glory. Damn the consequences. That's a lie. Is it? Then explain to me why I have her original research locked in my private safe. Why I've spent the last 30 years trying to fix the flaw she refused to acknowledge. Why I've poured billions into research, trying to make her dream work safely. Damien had felt his certainty crack. You're lying. I'm many things, Damien. A liar is not one of them, at least not about this. She'd returned to her desk, pulled out a key, unlocked a drawer. Your mother's research is the foundation for synaptrol. But synaptrol is also killing people. Slowly. In ways we're still trying to understand. I've had teams working on it for 15 years. We've saved millions of lives with that drug. But we've also ended thousands. And I live with that knowledge every single day. She'd pulled out a thick file, slid it across the desk. Read it. It's all there. Your mother's original research, my team's modifications, the adverse effect reports, the death counts, all of it. Damien had stared at the file like it might bite him. I'm offering you a choice, Vivienne had said. You can take that file, expose everything, destroy my company, and ensure that synaptrol gets pulled from the market. Millions of people who need it will suffer. Thousands more will die from their untreated conditions, and the research your mother died for will be lost forever. Or you can help me fix it. Use that brilliant mind I know you have. Yes, I know about neurotech solutions. I know about your Alzheimer's research. And help me solve the problem your mother couldn't. Help me make her dream work the way it was meant to. What Damien read in that file changed everything. And what Vivienne proposed next would either save them both or destroy them. Damien had spent 3 days reading the file, 3 days locked in a hotel room, going through page after page of research notes, clinical trials, death reports, and with each page his certainty crumbled a little more. His mother's research had been brilliant, but it had also been flawed. The treatment she'd developed had an interaction with certain genetic markers, markers that showed up in approximately 3% of the population. For those people, the treatment didn't just fail, it caused neurological degeneration, slow, subtle, impossible to detect until it was too late. Vivienne's teams had modified the formula, tried to eliminate the flaw. They'd succeeded partially. Synaptrol's adverse effects were rarer, less severe, but they still existed. And every few months, someone died. Someone whose genetic markers made them incompatible with the drug. Someone whose death looked natural. A stroke, an aneurysm, heart failure. The death count was in the thousands now, spread over 15 years across dozens of countries, hidden in the statistical noise of natural mortality rates. And Vivienne Frost had known all along. But she'd also saved millions. Synaptrol was a miracle drug for 97% of patients. It had restored quality of life to people who'd been trapped in failing bodies. It had given families more time with loved ones. It had changed the entire field of neurology. Was it worth it? The lives saved versus the lives lost? Damien didn't know, and that uncertainty felt like betrayal of his mother's memory. He'd returned to Vivienne's office on the fourth day. "Well," she'd asked, "why haven't you gone public, pulled the drug, faced the consequences?" Because the consequences would be worse. Synaptrol pulled from market means millions of people suffering. It means every other pharmaceutical company in the world knowing that we can be brought down by scandal. It means my competitors circling like sharks, buying up my company's pieces and burying your mother's research forever. Vivienne had met his eyes. "I'm not a good person, Damien, but I'm not a monster either. I'm trying to fix this. I need help." "Why me?" "Because your Alzheimer's research uses similar pathways. Because you have your mother's gift. Because you understand what's at stake." She'd paused. "And because you want revenge. I can give you that too." "How?" "By destroying the people who forced me to bury your mother's research in the first place. The board members who demanded we rush to market. The executives who threatened to oust me if I didn't produce profits. The shareholders who only care about quarterly earnings." Vivienne's smile had been cold. "I've been building a case against them for years. Evidence of fraud, embezzlement, insider trading. Everything I need to burn them all to the ground. But I can't do it alone. I need an ally. Someone smart. Someone motivated. Someone they'll underestimate." "And what do you get out of this?" "A clear conscience, a fixed drug, and someone to leave my company to when I'm gone." Damien had laughed. "You have children." "My children are vultures, capable, yes, brilliant in their own ways. But they don't care about the research. They don't care about your mother's legacy. They care about money and power and maintaining their lifestyles." Vivienne had leaned back in her chair. "You care. That makes you dangerous and useful. So, what are you proposing?" "An alliance. You work with me. We fix Synaptrol. We expose the corrupt board members. We save the company and honor your mother's work. And in exchange, I make you my heir. Not legally. My children would contest that forever. But practically, I give you control of the research division." I give you resources. I give you the power to shape this company's future. That's insane. That's genius. They'll never see it coming. And she'd been right. But Vivienne's plan had required one more element, something that would shock everyone and give them cover to work together. Something scandalous, something unforgettable, a marriage. The marriage had been Vivienne's idea, presented 3 months into their alliance. They'd been working late in her private lab, a facility that only she and her most trusted scientists could access. Damien had been reviewing genetic data, cross-referencing it with his own Alzheimer's research, when Vivienne had said, seemingly out of nowhere, "We should get married." Damien had nearly dropped the test tube he was holding. "What? Married? You and me? It's the perfect cover. Have you lost your mind? Think about it. If you suddenly appear as my business partner, my children will investigate you. They'll discover neurotech. They'll realize your competition. They'll move to push you out before you gain any real power." Vivienne had been utterly calm, as if proposing marriage was no different than proposing a new marketing strategy. "But if you're my husband, my scandalous, inappropriate headline-making husband, they'll dismiss you. They'll think you're a gold digger, a boy toy, a midlife crisis made flesh. They'll underestimate you completely. And while they're busy being scandalized, we'll be dismantling the corrupt board and fixing Synaptrol." That's... Damien had searched for words. That's completely insane. It's brilliant. People will think you've lost your mind. Let them. I've built empires while people doubted me. Your children will hate me. They already hate everyone. This won't change much. Damien had stared at her. "You're serious." "Completely. We'd have to live together, play the role, convince people it's real. For a year or two, yes. Once we've accomplished our goals, we can have a quiet divorce. You get a settlement, not that you need it, and we go our separate ways. Or we maintain the partnership if it's working." Vivienne had smiled. "Think of it as a very unorthodox business arrangement. This is crazy. This is necessary. And if we're being honest..." Her eyes had met his, and there was something almost vulnerable in them. "I'm 65 years old. I have maybe 10 good years left. 15 if I'm lucky. I want to fix this. I want to make your mother's dream real. I want a clean house and leave behind a company that does good, not just profit. And I can't do it alone." Damien had thought about it for exactly 3 seconds before saying, "Fine, but if we're doing this, we do it spectacularly. If we're going to scandalize them, let's really scandalize them." Vivienne's smile had been radiant. "I was hoping you'd say that." And that's when things really started to get interesting. If you're loving this story of revenge, secrets, and billion-dollar chess games, make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next, trust me, you won't want to miss a single twist. The wedding had been planned in secret. Neither Cassandra nor Julian had known until the invitations arrived. Elegant, cream-colored cards with gold embossing, announcing the marriage of Vivienne Frost to Damien Cole, to take place in 3 weeks. Cassandra had called within an hour. "Tell me this is a joke." "No joke, darling. I'm getting married." "To a mailroom clerk?" "To a biotech CEO worth $800 million. But yes, he did briefly work in our mailroom. He wanted to see how the company operated from the ground up. I admire that kind of thoroughness." There had been a long silence. You've lost your mind. Perhaps, or perhaps I've finally found it. Either way, I expect you to be there. Both of you. Behave yourselves. She'd hung up before Cassandra could respond. Julian's reaction had been colder, more calculated. He'd flown to Geneva immediately, demanding a meeting. "This is about the company, isn't it?" he'd said, pacing in her office. "You're trying to push us out. You're bringing in an outsider to take over." "Don't be ridiculous. The company will remain in family hands." "His hands?" Julian. Vivienne's voice had dropped to that dangerous register that had made hardened executives weep. "I have built this empire from nothing. I have sacrificed everything for this company, for this family, and I will damn well marry whoever I choose. Your approval is neither required nor relevant. He's using you, or I'm using him. Have you considered that?" Julian had stormed out, but Vivienne had seen the calculation in his eyes. He was already planning his countermoves. Good. Let him plan. Let them all plan. They'd be so busy fighting Damien that they wouldn't notice what was really happening until it was too late. The wedding was just the opening move. The real war began at the first board meeting after Vivienne and Damien returned from their honeymoon. The Frost Pharmaceuticals boardroom was designed to intimidate. 20-foot ceilings, walls of dark wood, a table that seated 30, made from a single massive tree that had been extinct for 200 years. Portraits of previous CEOs lined the walls, stern men in suits, looking down with disapproval at anyone who dared challenge the company's legacy. Vivienne sat at the head of the table, Damien at her right hand. She'd insisted he attend this board meeting, had made it clear he was now an advisor to the CEO. The board members had been displeased. 12 of them sat around that table. Old men mostly, a few women who'd clawed their way into power and had no intention of giving it up. They represented billions in investments, decades of influence. They'd been running Frost Pharmaceuticals alongside Vivienne for years, and they'd been stealing from her the entire time. "Gentlemen, ladies," Vivienne's voice cut through the pre-meeting chatter. "Thank you for joining us today. I know my recent marriage has been a topic of discussion." Chuckles around the table, uncomfortable, patronizing. "I want to introduce you formally to my husband, Damien Cole Morgan. Many of you know him as DC Morgan, CEO of Neurotech Solutions. We've been in acquisition negotiations with his company for some time." That wiped the smiles away. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. Thomas Blackwell, the board's chairman and a man who'd been on the board since Vivienne's husband was alive, leaned forward. "I was unaware that those negotiations had reached such an intimate level." "I prefer to thoroughly vet potential acquisitions," Vivienne replied smoothly. "In this case, very thoroughly." More uncomfortable laughter. "What Mr. Morgan brings to this table," Vivienne continued, "is not just his company's valuable Alzheimer's research. He brings fresh perspective, young eyes, and a very particular skill set that I believe this board desperately needs." "And what skill set is that?" Blackwell's voice was cold. Damien spoke for the first time. "Forensic accounting." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "You see," Damien continued, standing, pulling out a tablet, "as part of the acquisition discussions, I had my team conduct a thorough audit of Frost Pharmaceuticals, Standard procedure. Due diligence. What we found was interesting. He swiped the tablet screen. The massive display on the wall behind Vivienne lit up with spreadsheets, bank statements, wire transfers. Over the past 15 years, Damien said, his voice calm and professional, approximately $2.3 billion have been siphoned from Frost Pharmaceuticals through a series of shell companies, fraudulent consulting fees, and inflated vendor contracts. The money was distributed among 7 board members who've been systematically embezzling from the company while reporting record profits to shareholders. The room erupted, voices shouting, denials, accusations flying. Vivienne didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Thomas Blackwell stood, his face red. This is outrageous. These accusations are supported by 5 years of documentation, Damien interrupted. Bank records, email chains, recorded phone conversations, all obtained legally through the audit process. Would you like me to continue? Another swipe. More documents filled the screen. Emails from Blackwell discussing the embezzlement. Bank statements showing transfers to his personal accounts. You've been stealing from Vivienne since her husband died, Damien said softly. You convinced the other board members to join you. You've been bleeding this company dry while pretending to be loyal advisors. And you've been very, very careful. Almost impossible to detect. Almost. Blackwell's face had gone from red to white. Vivienne, tell me you're not taking this boy's side over mine. Over the board that's been with you for decades. Vivienne stood. Her voice, when she spoke, could have frozen fire. Thomas, you attended my husband's funeral. You held my hand when I cried. You told me you'd help me run this company, honor Gregory's memory, protect his legacy, and then you stole from him, from me, from the company he built. We made you rich. You stole from me. The words cracked like a whip. The room fell silent. You think I didn't notice? You think I'm some foolish old woman you could rob blind? I've known for 3 years. I've been gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. She gestured to Damien. And then this brilliant young man walked into my life with his own evidence, his own investigation, and gave me the final pieces I needed. So yes, Thomas, I'm taking his side because he's honest. And you're a thief. The other board members, Blackwell sputtered, the 7 involved in the embezzlement will resign immediately, effective now. Security is waiting outside to escort you from the building. You'll be hearing from our attorneys. The rest of the board, Vivienne's gaze swept the room, will remain, with pay cuts and a very clear understanding that this company is mine, my empire, my rules. You can't do this. Another board member, Patricia Volkov, head of international operations, said, We'll sue. We'll go public. The scandal will destroy the company's stock price. Try it, Vivienne said softly, and I'll release every piece of evidence we have. Your embezzlement, your affairs, your tax evasion, every dirty secret we've uncovered. You'll go to prison. I'll go back to making billions. Silence. Any other objections? No one spoke. Good. The 7 named in the investigation have 60 seconds to leave this room. If you're still here after that, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Your choice. Watching 7 powerful board members slink out like Skoldiff-continue children should have felt like victory. But Vivienne knew better. She'd just made enemies who would stop at nothing to destroy her. And Damien was about to discover that being married to a billionaire made him a target too. The assassination attempt came 3 days later. Damien was driving back from Neuratech's Geneva facility, taking the scenic route along the lake when his car's brakes failed. He'd been going 80 kilometers per hour on a winding mountain road. No guardrail, 100-meter drop to the water below. He'd felt the brake pedal go soft, had pumped it frantically, felt the car accelerating instead of slowing. The turn ahead approached fast, too fast. He'd had maybe 3 seconds to make a decision. He'd yanked the emergency brake, felt the back wheels lock, felt the car begin to spin. He'd steered into the spin, fighting for control, the world rotating around him in a blur of grey rock and blue water and green trees. The car had left the road, gone airborne for a heart-stopping moment, then crashed into a stand of pine trees 10 meters from the cliff edge. The impact had deployed the airbags, crushed the front end, shattered the windshield. Damien had hung there, suspended by his seatbelt, ears ringing, tasting blood, watching steam rise from the destroyed engine. He'd been conscious enough to think that wasn't an accident. The police report had called it mechanical failure, a faulty brake line, probably corroded, that had given way at the worst possible moment. Tragic. Fortunate that Mr. Morgan had survived. But when Vivienne's private security team examined the car, they'd found evidence of tampering. Someone had weakened the brake line deliberately, precisely so it would fail under heavy use. Someone had tried to kill him. The board members, Damien had said from his hospital bed, his ribs wrapped, his face bruised. Blackwell or one of the others. They're sending a message. Or my children, Vivienne had replied quietly. She'd been sitting beside his bed, and her face was harder than he'd ever seen it. Cassandra's been making calls to her lawyer. Julian's been meeting with investors, trying to build support for a vote of no confidence against me. They'd kill me. They'd hire someone to kill you, keep their hands clean, and they'd make it look like an accident so I couldn't prove anything. She'd taken his hand, and the gesture had surprised him. It felt genuine. I'm sorry. I didn't think they'd move this quickly. I underestimated how much of a threat they'd see you as. So, what do we do? Vivienne's smile had been cold as winter. We move faster. We hit them before they can hit us again. And we make sure they understand. If they come for you, they're coming for me. And I don't lose. Cassandra Frost had always been underestimated. People saw a pretty face, expensive clothes, a woman who'd inherited her position. They never saw the predator beneath. That was her advantage, and she was about to use it. Cassandra's office in New York was a monument to modern power. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, abstract art that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. She sat behind her desk, 42 years old and absolutely lethal in a white suit that made her look like an avenging angel, and listened to her lawyer detail exactly how difficult it would be to contest her mother's marriage. The prenup is airtight, Richard Thorne said. He was 60, silver-haired, and had never lost a case involving estates over $100 million. Your mother's attorneys are the best in the world. They've anticipated every challenge. If you try to claim diminished capacity, they'll produce medical records showing she's sharper than ever. If you claim coercion, they have testimony from dozens of witnesses at the wedding. If you claim fraud, he is fraud, Cassandra interrupted. He infiltrated the company under a false name. He wormed his way into her bed and her business. There has to be a way to invalidate the marriage. Not if she married him knowing exactly who he was. Not if she can prove she entered the marriage willingly, with full mental capacity, understanding the consequences. Thorne leaned back. Your mother is playing four-dimensional chess, Cassandra. She's 10 moves ahead of us. Then we need to get ahead of her. How? Cassandra was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. Then, what if Damien isn't who he claims to be? What do you mean? He says he's D.C. Morgan, founder of Neurotech. But what if he's lying? What if Neurotech is a shell company? What if his entire fortune is fabricated? We investigated. His company is real. His wealth is real. Did we investigate hard enough? Cassandra turned to face Thorne. I want a team of private investigators. The best. I want them to dig into every aspect of Damien Cole Morgan's life. Where he was born. Where he went to school. Every job. Every relationship. Every financial transaction. If he's hiding something, and people always are, I want to know what it is. That kind of investigation will cost. I don't care what it costs. I want ammunition. I want leverage. I want something I can use to destroy him before he destroys this family. Thorne nodded slowly. And if we find something, then we use it. We expose him. We show Mother that her boy toy is a fraud, and we make her choose between him and her company, between him and her children, between him and her legacy. And if she chooses him? Cassandra's smile was her mother's smile, beautiful and terrifying. Then we take the company from her, a hostile takeover, a vote of no confidence from the shareholders. We prove she's no longer fit to lead. We save the company from her poor judgment, and we become the heroes who rescued Frost Pharmaceuticals from the gold digger who almost destroyed it. That's a war, Cassandra, against your own mother. It's always been a war. She just pretended it wasn't. Cassandra stood, walking to the window. My entire life, she's dangled this company in front of Julian and me like a prize. Prove yourselves, she'd say. Show me you're worthy. We've worked ourselves to exhaustion. We've sacrificed relationships, families, happiness. And for what? So she could hand it all to some stranger she married on a whim. Maybe she loves him. Cassandra laughed, bitter and sharp. Mother doesn't love anyone. She loves power. She loves control. This is just another game to her, another way to manipulate us, to keep us fighting for her approval. She turned back to Thorne. Well, I'm done fighting for her. I'm fighting for myself now, and I'm going to win. But while Cassandra was plotting in New York, Julian was making his own moves in Europe, and he'd found an ally that neither Vivienne nor Damien had anticipated. Someone who wanted to destroy them both. Julian Frost had never been subtle. Where his sister used stilettos, he used sledgehammers. Where she plotted in shadows, he preferred public confrontation. He was 45, built like an athlete despite his desk job, and he'd inherited his father's temper along with his business acumen. He was also, currently, sitting in a very expensive restaurant in Paris with a man who'd once tried to buy Frost Pharmaceuticals and had been publicly humiliated by Vivienne in the process. Laurent Beaumont, Victoria Beaumont's son. 50 years old, billionaire in his own right through his luxury hotels, and still bitter about the failed acquisition attempt 3 years ago. Your mother, Laurent said, swirling his wine, is a remarkable woman, brilliant, ruthless, absolutely without conscience when it comes to protecting her empire. That's why I'm here, Julian replied. She's lost her mind. This marriage is genius, actually. Laurent smiled. Don't misunderstand me. I admire the strategy. Marry young. Shock everyone. Use the scandal as cover while she restructures the board. It's exactly what I'd do if I were in her position. So, you support her? I didn't say that. I said I admire it. But admiration doesn't mean approval. Laurent set down his wine glass. I want Frost Pharmaceuticals. I've wanted it for years. Your mother stole a deal from me, a biotech acquisition I'd been negotiating for months. She swooped in, offered twice what I did, and took it out from under me. Made me look weak in front of my investors. I don't forgive that kind of insult. So help me take her down. How? She's fortified. She's cleaned out the corrupt board members, which, ironically, makes the company stronger. She's brought in this Damien Morgan, who's apparently a legitimate genius, and she's got the loyalty of the research teams. What leverage do we have? Julian leaned forward, voice low. Synaptrol. Laurent's eyes sharpened. What about it? It's killing people, has been for years. Mother's known about it. She's buried the evidence, hidden the adverse effects, paid off families, falsified death certificates. If we can prove it, if we can go public with evidence, the company collapses, stock price crashes. She's investigated for fraud, for negligent homicide. She loses everything. Laurent was smiling now, genuinely delighted. And we buy the pieces for pennies, restructure, rebrand, rise from the ashes as the new owners of a reformed pharmaceutical empire. Exactly. There's just one problem. Your mother isn't stupid. She'll have hidden the evidence, locked it away, made it impossible to access. Julian's smile matched Laurent's. Not impossible. I know where she keeps her most sensitive files. A private vault in her Geneva estate. Biometric locks, armed guards, the works. But I'm her son. I have access to the house. I know the guard schedules. And I'm willing to bet she never changed the security protocols for the vault. You'd steal from your own mother? To save the company? To save her from herself? Yes. Julian's voice was hard. She's 65 and in love with a man young enough to be her grandson. She's making irrational decisions. She's risking everything my father built. I'm doing this for the family, for the legacy. Of course you are. Laurent didn't bother hiding his skepticism. And the fact that you'd end up controlling Frost Pharmaceuticals with my backing, that's just a happy coincidence. Call it whatever you want. Are you in or not? Laurent was quiet for a long moment, calculating. Then he extended his hand. I'm in, but I want 49%. You get 51. I provide the capital for the acquisition. You provide the evidence and the insider access. We take her down together. Julian shook his hand. Deal. But we move fast, before she suspects anything. Leave that to me. I have contacts in the media. When the time comes, we'll release the evidence everywhere simultaneously. Every news outlet, every social media platform, every regulatory body. She won't be able to contain it. She'll be destroyed in a matter of hours. They clinked glasses, sealing their conspiracy with expensive wine and expensive treachery. Neither of them noticed the waiter who'd been hovering nearby, the one with the hidden camera in his tie clip, the one who worked for Vivienne Frost's security team. Vivienne had spent 40 years learning to read people, to anticipate their moves, to stay 3 steps ahead. So when her security team brought her the recording of Julian and Laurent's meeting, she wasn't surprised, she was disappointed. And disappointment, in Vivienne Frost, was far more dangerous than anger. Vivienne watched the recording 3 times in her private study, Damien sitting beside her, both of them silent until the end. When it finished, she set down her tablet and walked to the window, staring out at the lake, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "Your own son," Damien said quietly, "and Cassandra's investigating me. Both of your children are actively trying to destroy you." "I know." Vivienne's voice was flat, emotionless. "I've known they would eventually. I've been preparing for it." "How are you so calm?" "Because I'm not surprised. I raised them to be ruthless, to fight for what they want, to never accept defeat. I shouldn't be shocked when they turn those lessons on me. They're planning to expose Synaptrol. If they get into your vault, they won't." "You sound certain." "I am." Vivienne turned to face him. "The vault Julian thinks he knows about, it's empty. I moved the sensitive documents months ago, right after our wedding. I knew my children would make a move eventually. The real vault is somewhere they'll never find it." "Where?" Vivienne smiled. "In the last place they'd look, inside your company. Neurotech Solutions, buried in your research archives, protected by your security, your protocols. Hidden among legitimate research data where no one would think to look for it." Damien stared at her. "You've been using my company as a storage facility?" "With your permission, of course. Don't you remember signing those document transfer authorizations 3 months ago?" He did remember. He'd thought they were just standard merger preparations. He hadn't realized. "You've been planning this since the beginning," he said slowly. "The marriage, the board purge, hiding the evidence in my company, all of it." "Not all of it. Some things I've had to improvise, like your car accident. I didn't anticipate they'd try to kill you that quickly." Vivienne sat down across from him. "But yes, the broad strokes were planned. I needed an ally I could trust, someone outside the family, someone who had as much to lose as I did if everything fell apart. Because of your mother's research." "Exactly. You want to fix Synaptrol as much as I do. You want to honor her legacy. That makes us partners in a way my children could never be. They don't care about the science. They care about profits and power." "So what do we do about Julian?" "We let him steal the documents from the empty vault. We let him think he's won. He'll go to Laurent. They'll prepare to go public. And when they do," Vivienne's smile was sharp, "they'll release falsified documents. Documents I planted specifically for them to find. Documents that show Synaptrol is completely safe, that all adverse effects were properly reported to regulatory agencies, that Frost Pharmaceuticals has been conducting ongoing safety monitoring for years. They'll look like fools. Worse, they'll look like conspirators trying to manipulate stock prices through false information. They'll be investigated for securities fraud. And while they're dealing with that, I'll move forward with the real plan, which is to fix Synaptrol, to use your research, combined with what we know about the genetic markers, to create a screening test. We identify the 3% who can't safely take the drug before we prescribe it. We offer them alternative treatments. We eliminate the adverse effects completely. That will take years, billions in research costs. I have years, and billions. Vivienne leaned forward. But I need your help. Your mother's research, your own work on Alzheimer's, it's all connected. If we combine our resources, our knowledge, we can do this. We can save millions of lives and honor Isabel's memory properly. Damien was quiet for a long time. Then, why me? Really? Not the official reasons, the real reason. Vivienne's mask slipped, just for a moment, and he saw something underneath. Grief, regret, something almost human. Because your mother was my friend, before everything went wrong, before the research and the fights and the lawsuits. We were friends. We'd have coffee together, talk about our dreams, laugh about the stupid men who ran the company. And when things fell apart, when I had to choose between her and the company, between her research and people's safety, I chose wrong. You chose the company. I chose profits. I chose reputation. I convinced myself I was choosing safety, but really, I was protecting myself. And your mother died hating me, believing I'd betrayed her. Vivienne's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I can't undo that, but I can honor her work. I can make sure her research saves lives the way she always wanted. And I can help her son become the scientist and businessman she always knew he could be. It was the most honest she'd been since they met. And Damien realized, in that moment, that he believed her. Okay, he said. So we let Julian steal fake documents. We let him and Laurent make their move. And then we destroy them, and we save the world, in that order. But destroying Julian and Laurent was the easy part. What came next would test everything Vivienne and Damien had built, because Cassandra's investigation was about to uncover a secret that would change everything. The investigator Cassandra hired was the best in the world, a former intelligence operative named Helena Marsh, who specialized in corporate espionage and could find skeletons in closets that had been sealed shut for decades. It took her 6 weeks, 6 weeks of digging through records, interviewing people, following paper trails that wound through 3 countries and 20 years. And at the end of those 6 weeks, she sat in Cassandra's office with a file that would detonate like a bomb. You wanted to know about Damien Cole Morgan, Helena said, placing the file on the desk. Here's what I found. Cassandra opened it, started reading, and with each page, her expression shifted from satisfaction to confusion to absolute shock. This can't be right, she said finally. It's verified. Multiple sources, documentation, birth certificates, medical records. Damien Cole Morgan is Isabelle Duchamp's son. Yes, Isabelle Duchamp, the scientist my mother destroyed 30 years ago. The same. So everything, the fake identity, the mailroom job, the marriage, it was all revenge. It appears so. He infiltrated your mother's company, seduced her, married her, all to get close enough to destroy her. Helena paused. Except that's not what happened. What do you mean? According to my sources inside Frost Pharmaceuticals, Damien and your mother have been working together, not against each other. They've been conducting joint research, combining their resources, their partners. Cassandra sat back, her mind racing. Mother knew. She knew who he was the whole time. I believe so. Then why marry him? Why bring him into the company? I don't know. But whatever they're planning, it's big. They've moved millions into research accounts. They've been having secret meetings with regulatory agencies, and they've been very, very careful to keep it all hidden from you and your brother. Cassandra stood, pacing, her mind working through the implications. If Mother knew Damien was Isabel's son, if she married him anyway, then this isn't about romance. It's not even about revenge. It's about… She stopped, turned to Helena. Synaptrol. It's about fixing Synaptrol. What? My mother's blockbuster drug. The one that's generated 40 billion in revenue. It's flawed, has been from the start. And Damien's research, his Alzheimer's work, it's related. They're trying to fix the drug, to make it safe. That's actually noble. That's corporate suicide. Cassandra's mind was working faster now, seeing the angles. If they go public with the flaws, if they admit Synaptrol has been killing people, the lawsuits will destroy the company. The stock price will collapse. We'll lose everything. Unless they fix it first, develop a screening test, make it safe. Then they can claim they've improved the drug, made it even better. Spin it as innovation, rather than admission of guilt. Brilliant, Cassandra whispered. Absolutely brilliant. Mother's playing the longest game possible, and she's using Damien to do it. So what do you do? Cassandra was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. I talk to my brother, and then I make a decision about which side I'm on. Vivienne Frost had always believed in facing problems directly. So when she learned that Cassandra knew the truth about Damien, she did the only logical thing. She invited both her children to dinner at her house, where nothing could possibly go wrong. The dinner was held in Vivienne's formal dining room, a space that could seat 40 but was set for just 5. Vivienne, Damien, Cassandra, Julian, and one empty chair that Vivienne insisted on keeping. For your father, she'd said. He always hated these family fights, but he'd want to be here. The meal was catered by a Michelin-starred chef. The wine cost more per bottle than most cars. The tension could have been cut with a chainsaw. They made it through the first 2 courses in near silence before Julian finally spoke. So, are we going to talk about it? About what, darling? Vivienne's voice was sweet as poisoned honey. About the fact that your husband is the son of a woman you destroyed. About the fact that this entire marriage is a sham. About the fact that you're using him to fix a drug that's been killing people for years. Cassandra set down her fork with deliberate precision. Julian, shut up. Everyone turned to stare at her. I'm serious. Shut up. You're about to do something monumentally stupid, and I'm not going to let you. Cassandra, Julian started. No. Listen to me. For once in your life, actually listen. She turned to Vivienne. Mother, I know about Damien. I know who he is. I know what you're planning. And I think… She paused, and her next words clearly cost her. I think you're doing the right thing. Silence. What? Julian looked like he'd been slapped. The right thing, Cassandra repeated. Fixing Synaptrol, making it safe. That's what matters. Not our pride, not our control of the company. Lives, people's lives. You can't be serious. I am, and if you'd stop thinking with your ego for 5 seconds, you'd see it too. Cassandra turned to Damien. Your mother was brilliant. Her research was revolutionary. And yes, Mother made mistakes in how she handled it, but she's trying to fix those mistakes now. She's trying to honor Isabel's legacy. That's worth supporting. Vivienne's face was unreadable. Cassandra, what changed? I read your mother's journals, Cassandra said to Damien. Part of my investigation. I tracked down her personal effects, and I read what she wrote about her research, about her dreams, about you. Her voice softened. She loved you so much. Everything she did was for you, to give you a better life, to make the world better for you. And she'd be proud of what you've become. Damien's throat tightened. How do you know? Because she wrote it in her last journal entry, the day before she died. She wrote, "If I don't survive this, if the cancer takes me, I hope Damien knows how proud I am. I hope he uses his gifts for good. I hope he's braver than I was, and I hope he forgives me for not being strong enough to fight back." The room was silent, except for the quiet tick of an antique clock. She thought she'd failed, Cassandra continued. She thought her research would die with her. But it didn't. Because of you. Because you spent 12 years building your own company, doing your own research, preparing to honor her legacy. And then you found Mother. And instead of destroying her, which you could have, you chose to work with her, to fix what was broken. That's not revenge, that's heroism. Julian stood abruptly. This is insane. You're all insane. Cassandra, he's using her, using us. When this blows up, it won't blow up, Vivienne said quietly, because we're not hiding anymore. We're going public. Tomorrow, we're announcing the Synaptrol Safety Initiative, the genetic screening program, the enhanced monitoring, all of it. You'll be crucified. The lawsuits will be settled. I've already set aside $5 billion in a victim compensation fund. Every family affected by Synaptrol's adverse effects will be compensated generously, and we'll offer them a public apology. The stock price will tank in the short term, but when we demonstrate the improved safety profile, when we show that we're committed to patient safety over profits, it will recover. And we'll be stronger for it. Vivienne stood, walking to Julian. I'm sorry, my dear boy. I know you wanted the company. I know you've worked for it. But you don't understand what it's really for. It's not about money. It's about legacy, about doing good. And that's something I can't teach you. You either understand it or you don't. Julian stared at her. So that's it. You're choosing him over us. I'm choosing what's right over what's easy. If that means choosing Damien, then yes. But Cassandra understands. And I hope, eventually, you will too. Julian looked at his sister. You're really siding with them? Cassandra met his gaze steadily. I'm siding with doing the right thing. If you're smart, you'll do the same. He left without another word. The door slammed behind him with a finality that made everyone flinch. Vivienne sat down heavily. For the first time, she looked her age. Well, that went about as well as expected. He'll come around, Damien said. Will he? Vivienne's smile was sad. I'm not sure. But I can't worry about that now. We have work to do. An announcement to prepare, a company to save. She raised her wine glass. After a moment, Cassandra and Damien did the same. To Isabelle Duchamp, Vivienne said, may her dream finally become reality. They drank. But Julian wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And what he did next would force Vivienne to make the hardest choice of her life. Between her son and everything she'd built. Julien went directly from his mother's house to meet Laurent Beaumont. They sat in Laurent's Paris penthouse, overlooking the city, and Julien's hands shook with rage as he told Laurent everything. She's going public tomorrow, admitting to the adverse effects, offering compensation, spinning it as corporate responsibility. Laurent was quiet for a long moment. Brilliant. She's turned a potential disaster into a PR victory. Are you serious? Think about it. She admits the problem. She offers generous compensation. She positions herself as the hero who fixed what previous management broke. The media will eat it up. Billionaire sacrifices profits for patient safety. It'll be on every front page. So we do nothing? We just let her win? I didn't say that. Laurent stood, walking to his bar, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. We accelerate. We go public tonight. Before she does. We release the documents I have, the ones showing she's known about the deaths for years. We paint her as a villain who's only acting now because she got caught. We make sure the narrative is about her guilt, not her redemption. Will that work? It will if we do it right. I have contacts at every major news organization. By morning, the story will be everywhere. Pharmaceutical billionaire hid deadly side effects for decades. By the time she makes her announcement, she'll be playing defense. And in media wars, defense always loses. Julien drank his scotch in one gulp. Do it. Release everything. Destroy her. You're sure? There's no going back from this. You'll be destroying your mother's reputation, your family's legacy. She chose him over me, over her own son. She deserves what she gets. Laurent picked up his phone. Then let's burn it all down. At 2 a.m., Vivienne's phone rang. The call would change everything. And by sunrise, the world would know secrets that had been buried for 30 years. Vivienne woke to her phone, buzzing insistently. Damien stirred beside her. They'd maintained the pretense of sharing a bedroom, though neither had expected it to become comfortable, real even. She answered without checking the caller ID. Yes? Turn on the news. It was Victoria Beaumont, her voice tight. Any channel, now. Vivienne felt her stomach drop. She reached for the remote, turned on the television. Every news channel was running the same story. Breaking. Frost Pharmaceuticals hid deadly drug side effects for decades. Sources confirm CEO Vivienne Frost knew about Synaptrol's fatal flaws. Thousands may have died from medication. Billionaire knew was dangerous. Damien was awake now, sitting up, staring at the screen. How did they... Julien, Vivienne said flatly. He took the documents from the vault. But those were fake. The documents you planted were mixed with real ones. Smart boy. He must have had them verified. Found the authentic reports among the false ones. Vivienne's mind was racing, calculating. Laurent's behind this. He's the only one with the media connections to push a story this big, this fast. Her phone rang again, then again, and again. Investors, board members, attorneys, all panicking. Vivienne silenced the phone, stood, walked to her closet, and began dressing with deliberate calm. What are you doing? Damien asked. Getting ready for war. We were going to control the narrative, release information on our terms. Julien took that option away. So now we fight. The stock price will be in free fall when the markets open. I know, we'll have lost 20 billion in value by noon. The lawsuits will be catastrophic. Class action suits, wrongful death claims. government investigations. I know. Then what's the plan? Vivienne turned to him, fully dressed now in a black suit that looked like armor. The truth. All of it. No more hiding. No more careful PR. We go on camera, and we tell the world everything. About your mother. About the research. About what we've been doing for the past year. About the fix we've developed. We make them understand. That's insane. You'll be admitting to being human, to making mistakes, to choosing profits over safety, and living with that guilt every day. Her voice was steel. But also to trying to fix it, to spending years developing a solution, to partnering with Isabel's son to honor her legacy, to creating a screening program that will save lives. We make this about redemption, not just guilt. Damien stood, moved to her. That might not work. The public might not forgive you. I know, but it's the only option we have, and it's the right thing to do. Isn't that what Cassandra said? Do the right thing? Vivienne, he paused, searching for words. If this goes badly, if you lose the company, lose everything, I want you to know, I don't regret this. Any of it. Working with you, getting to know you. This isn't how I expected this to go when I started, but what? He smiled, a little sad. But I'm glad it went this way. She touched his face, a gesture that surprised them both. So am I. The next 24 hours would determine the fate of a billion-dollar empire, but more importantly, it would reveal what happens when someone finally tells the truth in an industry built on secrets. If you want to see how this ends, make sure you're subscribed, because what Vivienne does next, trust me, you won't see it coming. The press conference was held at 8 a.m. in the main auditorium of Frost Pharmaceutical's Geneva headquarters. Every major media outlet was there. The room was packed with journalists, cameras, lights. Outside, protesters had already gathered, holding signs that read, "Billionaire killer" and "Justice for Synaptrol victims." Vivienne walked to the podium with Damien beside her. She wore no makeup except lipstick. Let them see her face. Let them see she wasn't hiding. "My name is Vivienne Frost," she began, "and I've been lying to you for 30 years. The room went silent. Cameras flashed like lightning. Synaptrol, the medication that's helped millions of people with neurological conditions, has a flaw, a genetic incompatibility that affects approximately 3% of patients. For those people, the drug doesn't just fail to help, it causes neurological degeneration, strokes, aneurysms, death." Murmurs spread through the crowd like ripples in water. "I've known about this flaw for 15 years, and I did nothing. I told myself we were doing more good than harm, that the lives saved outweighed the lives lost, that we were working on a fix. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I was afraid of lawsuits, afraid of scandal, afraid of losing the company my husband built. So I hid the evidence. I buried the deaths. I prioritized profit over people." She paused, letting that sink in. She looked out at the crowd and saw anger. Betrayal, exactly what she deserved, continued. "There's more. The research that Synaptrol was based on, it was stolen. 30 years ago, a brilliant scientist named Isabelle Duchamp developed a groundbreaking treatment for Parkinson's disease. I saw its potential, but I also saw its flaws. Instead of working with her to fix those flaws, I buried her research. I destroyed her career. I took her life's work and used it to build a fortune, while she died, forgotten and broken. More murmurs, louder now, angrier. The man standing next to me is Damien Cole Morgan. He's also Isabelle Duchamp's son. He came to this company seeking revenge, seeking justice for his mother, and he deserved both. Instead, I offered him a partnership, a chance to fix what I broke, to honor his mother's legacy properly, and he accepted. For the past year, we've been working together to develop a genetic screening program that will identify patients who can't safely take synaptrol. We've invested billions in research. We've developed alternative treatments, and we're ready to launch it publicly. She gestured, and the screen behind her lit up with data, graphs, test results, proof that they'd been working on this for real. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am asking for the chance to make this right. Every family affected by synaptrol's adverse effects will receive compensation, not a settlement that makes them sign non-disclosure agreements. Real compensation, justice, and I'm offering my resignation as CEO of Frost Pharmaceuticals. That got gasps, real shock. I'll remain on the board. I'll oversee the safety initiative, but the company needs new leadership. Someone who prioritizes people over profit, someone who understands what's really at stake. She turned to Damien. Damien Cole Morgan will be taking over as CEO, effective immediately. His company, Neurotech Solutions, will merge with Frost Pharmaceuticals. Together, we'll build something better, something his mother would be proud of. Damien stepped forward. My mother died believing her research was worthless, that she'd wasted her life. I spent years hating Vivienne Frost for that. But the truth is more complicated than I wanted to believe. Yes, mistakes were made. Terrible mistakes. But Vivienne didn't steal my mother's research out of malice. She took it because she saw its potential. She saw that it could save lives, and she spent years trying to make it safe. That doesn't excuse what was done. But it does mean something. He paused, looked out at the crowd. My mother believed science should serve humanity. That profit should never come before people. I'm dedicating the rest of my career to making that belief reality, starting with synaptrol. We're fixing it. We're making it safe. And we're going to be transparent about every step of the process. No more secrets, no more lies, just science, real science that saves lives. Questions erupted, journalists shouting over each other. Vivienne raised her hand for silence. I'll take questions now, all of them, no matter how hard they are. The press conference went viral within minutes. By noon, it was the only story anyone was talking about. And the reactions were complicated. The market reaction was immediate and brutal. Frost Pharmaceuticals' stock price dropped 40% in the first hour of trading, another 20% by close, $60 billion in market value, gone in a single day. But something unexpected happened in the following days. Patients came forward, not just victims, survivors, people whose lives had been saved by synaptrol, people who'd been given years they wouldn't have had otherwise. They told their stories. They defended the drug, even while acknowledging its flaws, and they praised Vivienne for finally telling the truth. She could have kept hiding it, one woman said on camera. She's rich enough to bury this forever. But she didn't. She owned it. That takes courage. Medical ethicists weighed in. Some condemned her. Others acknowledged the impossible position she'd been in. a drug that saved millions but killed thousands. What was the moral calculus there? Investors were split. Some dumped their stock immediately. Others bought more, betting that the new transparency would ultimately make the company stronger. And the lawsuits came, as expected. Class action suits representing thousands of families. The legal fees alone would be astronomical. But Vivienne didn't fight them. She settled. Every single one. Quickly. Generously. She opened the books, showed the finances, paid out the $5 billion victim fund in less than 6 months. It bankrupted her personally. Her net worth dropped from $4.7 billion to less than $800 million. She sold her estates, her art collection, her yacht. She kept one house in Geneva and her shares in the company. Everything else went to the families. And slowly, painfully slowly, public opinion began to shift. Billionaire pays real price for mistakes. Vivienne Frost, villain or tragic hero? Pharmaceutical CEO's redemption. Is it real? The answer, it seemed, was complicated. But while Vivienne was fighting for redemption in the public eye, Julian was fighting a different battle, one that would cost him everything, and reveal the truth about what really drove him. Julian's alliance with Laurent collapsed within weeks of the press conference. Laurent had expected the scandal to destroy Frost Pharmaceuticals completely. He'd expected to swoop in, buy the company for pennies, and rebuild his empire. Instead, he'd underestimated public sympathy for Vivienne's honesty. He'd underestimated Damien's competence as a CEO. And he'd underestimated how quickly the company could pivot. The stock price stabilized, then began to climb. The safety initiative was working. The genetic screening program was being adopted worldwide, and Frost Pharmaceuticals was being hailed as a pioneer in pharmaceutical transparency. Laurent had bet against the company, shorted the stock, lost $3 billion in the process, and he blamed Julian. "You said she'd be destroyed," Laurent hissed during their last meeting. "You said the company would collapse. Instead, she's a goddamn hero." "I didn't know she'd go public like that. I didn't know people would forgive her." "You didn't know anything. You're a spoiled child playing at business." Laurent stood. "We're done. And if you think I won't recoup my losses by suing you for fraud, for misleading me about those documents, think again." Julian left that meeting knowing his life was over. Laurent would sue. The evidence of their conspiracy would come out. Julian would be exposed as the one who tried to destroy his own mother's company. His reputation would be ruined. He went to the one person he thought might help him, Cassandra. His sister listened to his story in her New York office, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "So you're asking me to, what? Defend you? Pay Laurent off? Help you? You're my sister. And you tried to destroy our mother, our family, our company. For what? Pride? Ego? Because you were mad that she chose Damien over you?" "I was protecting the family." "No. You were protecting yourself, your position, your inheritance. You never cared about the company. You never cared about the science. You only cared about power." Cassandra stood. "I'm not helping you, Julian. You made your choices. Now you live with them." "Cassandra, get out and don't come back." He left. And for the first time in his life, Julian Frost had no idea what to do next. 6 months after the press conference, Vivienne received a visitor she never expected. And the conversation they had would change everything about how she saw her choices, her life, and her family. Julian appeared at Vivienne's Geneva house on a cold November evening. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, wearing clothes that hadn't been pressed. The security team almost didn't let him in, but Vivienne saw him on the cameras and told them to let him through. They sat in her study, the room where this had all started so many months ago. Vivienne poured him whiskey without asking if he wanted it. He drank it without speaking. Laurent's lawsuit is moving forward, Vivienne said finally. I've seen the filings. I know. The evidence is damning. Conspiracy to commit securities fraud, manipulation of stock prices, defamation. I know. You'll lose everything. Your reputation, your position at the company, possibly your freedom. I know. Vivienne sighed. Why are you here, Julian? He looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen since he was a child. Fear. Real, genuine fear. I don't know. I didn't know where else to go. Cassandra? Won't speak to me. She's right to. I tried to destroy everything. Yes, you did. I thought I was protecting the family, protecting you from him. Julian gestured vaguely toward where Damien presumably was. I thought he was using you. I thought I was saving you. Did you really believe that? Or did you just tell yourself that because it sounded better than admitting you were jealous? Julian flinched. Both. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Vivienne studied her son, 45 years old and broken. She'd raised him to be strong, to be ruthless, to fight for what he wanted, and he'd turned those lessons into weapons used against her. But he was still her son. I'm going to tell you something I should have told you years ago, she said quietly. You were never going to run this company. Neither was Cassandra. I knew that when you were both in your 20s. You're both brilliant, capable, but you don't have the vision. You don't have the passion for the science. You see this company as a tool for power, as a way to make money. And that's fine. That's how most people see it. But it's not why your father built it. It's not why I've spent 40 years fighting for it. Then why didn't you tell us? Why let us think we had a chance? Because I was a coward. Because I didn't want to admit I'd failed as a mother. That I'd raised children who valued money more than meaning. That I'd been so focused on building an empire that I forgot to teach you why empires matter. Vivienne set down her glass. Your father and I built this company to help people, to fund research, to turn science into medicine. The money was a byproduct. For you and Cassandra, the money is the goal. That's why I could never give you control. You'd turn it into just another profit machine. And Damien understands what's at stake. He's his mother's son. He cares about the science, about legacy, about doing good. She paused. I wish you cared about those things too. I wish I'd taught you to. Julian was quiet for a long time. Then, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you love him? Damien? Is it real? Or is it all just strategy? Vivienne smiled, and it was small and genuine and almost sad. I don't know. Does it matter? To me? Yes. Because if it's strategy, then I was right. You're just using each other. But if it's real, if you actually fell in love with this man 36 years younger than you, then I don't understand you at all. I'm 66 years old, Julian. I've been married, widowed, alone for 15 years. I'd accepted that I'd never feel anything real for anyone again. And then Damien walked into my life. He was supposed to be an ally, a business partner, someone I could use to fix my mistakes. And somehow, I still don't know how, he became more than that. You love him. I respect him. I admire him. I trust him. Whether that's love or just profound appreciation, I genuinely don't know. But it's real. It's not strategy. And that terrifies me more than anything else in my life has. Julian finished his whiskey. I'm sorry for trying to destroy you, for choosing Laurent over family, for everything. I know, but sorry doesn't fix what you broke. Can anything? Vivienne considered. Maybe, if you're willing to fight for it, if you're willing to testify against Laurent, to help us prove he orchestrated the whole thing, to be honest about what you did and why. That would ruin me. Yes, but it might also save you, and it would help bring down a man who's been manipulating corporate markets for decades. Laurent's done this before, used people, destroyed companies, made billions off others' misery. If we can expose him, really expose him, it matters. And what do I get out of it? The chance to be someone your father would be proud of, for once in your life. Julian stood, walked to the window, looked out at the lake, dark and cold, under the night sky. Okay, he said finally, tell me what you need. 1 year after the scandal broke, Vivienne and Damien stood in front of a judge and got married. Again. This time, there were only 5 witnesses, and this time, it was real. The ceremony was small, private, held in the same garden where Vivienne's husband Gregory had proposed to her 43 years earlier. The guests were Cassandra, Victoria Beaumont, Damien's father's business partner, who'd been like an uncle to him, and 2 of Vivienne's oldest friends from university. Julian wasn't there. He was testifying in Paris, helping prosecutors build their case against Laurent Beaumont. He'd sent a card, though. It said simply, "Be happy, mother. You deserve it." Vivienne wore a simple cream dress. Damien wore a dark suit. No diamonds, no champagne fountain, no orchestra. Just 2 people standing in a garden, choosing each other honestly this time. The first wedding was a show, Vivienne said, not part of the official ceremony, just speaking to the small group gathered. We married for strategy, for business, to accomplish goals. And we did. We fixed Synaptrol. We exposed corruption. We saved the company. But somewhere in the middle of all that, we actually fell for each other, Damien finished. Which was not part of the plan. Scattered laughter from their guests. I never thought I'd love again, Vivienne continued. I certainly never thought I'd love someone young enough to be my son. And I won't pretend it's not complicated. People still talk. They still judge. They still write articles about our age difference, about whether this is real or just 2 people using each other. Let them talk, Damien said, taking her hand. I know what this is. You know what this is. And frankly, that's all that matters. I came into your life planning revenge. I stayed because I found something better than revenge. I found a partner, someone who challenges me, someone who's brilliant and terrifying and absolutely impossible to manipulate. You forgot old, Vivienne said dryly. You're not old. You're experienced. There's a difference. Sweet talker. It's one of my best qualities. The judge cleared his throat. Are we ready to make this official? They exchanged rings. Simple bands this time. No massive diamonds. Just gold. Just commitment. I do, Vivienne said. I do, Damien echoed. And this time, When they kissed, it felt different. Not performative, not strategic, just real. But happy endings aren't the end of the story. They're just the beginning of the next chapter. And what came next would test everything Vivienne and Damien had built, both as business partners and as something more. 6 months after the second wedding, Vivienne collapsed during a board meeting. She'd been presenting the quarterly results. The company was thriving, stock price higher than ever, the safety initiative a massive success, when she stumbled over a word, paused, put a hand to her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "I seem to have lost my train of—" And then she was on the floor. Damien was beside her instantly, calling for help, his hands shaking as he checked her pulse. She was breathing, eyes open, but confused, disoriented. The ambulance arrived in minutes. They rushed her to the hospital, ran tests, found the tumor, brain cancer, glioblastoma, aggressive, advanced. The doctors gave her 6 months to a year with treatment, maybe less without. Damien sat in her hospital room, holding her hand, and felt his world shatter. "No," he said simply. "No, we just fixed everything. We just got this right. You don't get to leave now." Vivienne smiled weakly. "I don't think cancer cares about our timeline, darling. Then we fight it. Surgery, radiation, chemo. Everything." "Damien, everything," he repeated fiercely. "You're Vivienne Frost. You've beaten competitors, corrupt boards, public scandal. You can beat this. I'm 67 years old, with a tumor the size of a golf ball in my brain. The odds aren't good." "I don't care about odds. We do the treatment. We use every resource we have. We fight." She squeezed his hand. "Okay, we fight." Vivienne Frost had fought many battles in her life, but fighting cancer while running a billion-dollar company and maintaining a marriage to a man 38 years younger turned out to be the hardest thing she'd ever done. The treatment was brutal. Surgery first. 12 hours on an operating table while surgeons tried to remove as much of the tumor as possible. They got 70%. The rest was too close to critical brain tissue. Then, radiation. Daily sessions that left her exhausted, nauseous, her silver hair falling out in clumps. She refused a wig. Let them see what this looked like. Let them see she wasn't hiding. Chemotherapy followed. The drugs that made her weak, made her sick, made her wonder if the treatment was worse than the disease. Through it all, she worked. From her hospital bed, from home, from the office when she had good days. She attended board meetings via video conference. She reviewed research reports. She signed off on decisions. "You should rest," Damien told her constantly. "Let me handle this. That's why you made me CEO. I'll rest when I'm dead, which I'm trying very hard not to be right now." Cassandra came to visit twice a week, bringing work documents and trying not to show how frightened she was. Julian sent flowers regularly, called every day from Paris where he was still testifying. And Damien was there for everything. Every doctor's appointment, every treatment session, every bad night when the pain was too much and she couldn't sleep. He held her hair when she vomited. He read to her when she was too weak to read herself. He researched every treatment option, called in favors from the best oncologists in the world, made sure she had access to every experimental therapy available. "You don't have to do this," she told him one night after a particularly bad treatment session. "You could walk away. No one would blame you. We've been married, really married, for less than a year. You didn't sign up for this. Actually, I did. In sickness and in health was part of the vows. Both times. But, Vivienne, stop. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. Why? Why stay? There are younger women, healthier women, women who bore me to tears. Damien smiled. I fell in love with you because you're brilliant, because you challenge me, because you're the most fascinating person I've ever met. None of that changes because you're sick. If anything, it makes me love you more. You're fighting this with the same ferocity you fight everything else. That's extraordinary. I'm scared, she admitted. I've never been scared of anything. But this, I'm terrified. I know, me too. If I die, you won't. If I do, the company, I need you to focus on getting better. Everything else can wait. But everything else couldn't wait. Because while Vivienne was fighting cancer, someone else was making a move to take the company away from both of them. Thomas Blackwell had been quiet since his forced resignation from the board. Too quiet. And what he'd been planning, while everyone was distracted by Vivienne's illness, would either destroy Frost Pharmaceuticals or finally unite the family that had been fractured for so long. Blackwell had spent the past year and a half assembling a coalition. Former board members who'd been ousted, competitors who wanted to see Frost Pharmaceuticals weakened, investors who were nervous about Vivienne's illness and the company's future. He'd been careful, discreet, building power quietly while everyone's attention was on Vivienne's health and the safety initiative. And then, when Vivienne was at her weakest, 3 months into chemotherapy, her body ravaged by treatment, he struck a hostile takeover attempt. Backed by a consortium of investors with deep pockets and deeper grudges, they offered shareholders a 30% premium over current stock price. All they had to do was vote out the current board, remove Damien as CEO, and install Blackwell as chairman. The offer was public, official, and expertly timed. With Vivienne incapacitated and Damien focused on caring for her, who would fight it? The answer came from an unexpected source. Cassandra Frost, standing in front of the New York Stock Exchange, giving an impromptu press conference that went viral within minutes. Thomas Blackwell is a thief and a coward, she said, her voice ringing with authority. He stole from my mother for years. He betrayed the company my father built. And now that my mother is fighting for her life, he's trying to steal it again. Not on my watch. She'd spent the previous 72 hours calling every major shareholder personally, explaining the situation, reminding them of what Vivienne and Damien had accomplished, highlighting the company's success under their leadership. And then she'd called her brother. Julian had returned from Paris, his testimony complete, his legal troubles largely resolved. He stood beside Cassandra at that press conference. For the first time in our lives, Julian said, my sister and I are on the same side. We're fighting for our mother's company, for our father's legacy, for the vision that Damien and mother have been building. Thomas Blackwell represents everything our parents fought against. Greed over people, profit over purpose, short-term gains over long-term good. We will not let him win. The siblings launched a counter-campaign. They met with institutional investors. They appeared on financial news programs. They wrote op-eds explaining the company's vision, its future. Why changing course now would be disastrous, and slowly, the tide began to turn. Shareholders who'd been tempted by Blackwell's premium offer started to reconsider. The company's recent success was hard to ignore. The safety initiative was working. The stock price was strong. Damien, despite his youth, was proving to be an exceptional CEO. Did they really want to risk all that for a short-term profit? The vote was scheduled for the annual shareholder meeting, 6 weeks after Blackwell's initial offer. Vivienne insisted on attending, against her doctor's advice. She walked into that conference room, the largest ballroom in Geneva's best hotel, wearing a Chanel suit and a silk scarf covering her bald head, and the room fell silent. She looked fragile, thin, pale, but her eyes were as fierce as ever. "I'm Vivienne Frost," she said into the microphone, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "And I'm not dead yet." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. "Thomas Blackwell is betting that I am, though. He's betting that I'm too weak to fight, that I'll die soon and the company will fall apart without me. He's probably right about the first part. This cancer is likely going to kill me. Statistics aren't on my side." The room went silent again. Uncomfortable. People shifting in their seats. "But he's wrong about the second part. This company won't fall apart without me. Because I built it to last. I built systems, trained successors, created a culture of innovation and responsibility. And most importantly," she gestured to Damien, standing beside her, "I found someone who understands what this company is really for. Not profit, not shareholder returns, people, science, legacy. Damien Morgan gets that in a way Thomas Blackwell never will." She paused, catching her breath. Damien moved closer, ready to help if she needed it. "My children are here today," Vivienne continued. "For years, they fought against me, against Damien. They wanted control of this company, and I don't blame them. I raised them to fight, to compete, to take what they wanted. But they've learned something I never taught them directly, that sometimes the thing you want most is less important than protecting what matters." They could have sided with Blackwell. They'd probably end up with more power if he won. But they didn't. They're here, fighting for me, for this company, for what's right. Cassandra and Julian stood, coming to flank their mother on the other side. "So here's what I'm asking," Vivienne said. "Vote with your conscience. Vote for the future you want to see. Vote for a company that prioritizes people over profit, or vote for Thomas Blackwell and quarterly earnings and business as usual. The choice is yours. But know this, if you choose Blackwell, you're choosing to undo everything we've built, everything we've fought for, everything my husband dreamed of 40 years ago when he started this company in a garage with one researcher and a prayer." She sat down, exhausted, the effort of the speech having drained what little strength she had. The vote was called, hands raised, proxies counted. The tension was unbearable. And when the results were announced, the current board, Vivienne's board, Damien's leadership, won. 63% of shareholders voted against Blackwell's takeover. Vivienne closed her eyes in relief. Damien kissed her forehead. Cassandra squeezed her mother's hand, and Thomas Blackwell left the ballroom without a word, defeated for the final time. Vivienne died 8 months later, on a Tuesday morning in May, with Damien holding her hand and her children sitting beside her bed. But the story didn't end there, because some legacies outlive the people who create them. The funeral was held at the same cathedral where she'd married Gregory Frost 44 years earlier. Thousands attended: business leaders, scientists, politicians, patients whose lives had been saved by Synaptrol. Damien gave the eulogy. He kept it short. Vivienne Frost was not a perfect person. She made mistakes. She hurt people. She prioritized the wrong things at the wrong times. But she also spent the last years of her life trying to make those mistakes right, trying to fix what was broken, trying to build something that would matter after she was gone. And she succeeded. Frost Pharmaceuticals is stronger today than it's ever been, not because of profit margins or stock prices, but because it stands for something. It stands for the idea that business can be a force for good, that science should serve humanity, that wealth comes with responsibility. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. Vivienne taught me that. She taught her children that. And through this company, she'll teach generations of scientists and business leaders who come after us. That's her legacy. Not the money, not the empire, the values, the commitment to doing better, to being better. He looked down at the casket, sleek and simple, exactly as she'd specified. I love you. I'll miss you. And I'll make sure everything we built together continues. That's my promise. Vivienne's will was read a week after the funeral. And what she'd arranged, the final pieces of her grand plan, would shock everyone and finally bring the family together in the way she never could while alive. Vivienne had left specific instructions for her estate. The reading was held in her lawyer's Geneva office, attended by Damien, Cassandra, Julian, and a handful of close friends. Her personal wealth, what remained after the victim compensation fund and medical bills, was divided three ways: 30% to Damien, 30% to Cassandra, 30% to Julian. The remaining 10% to various charities and research foundations. Her controlling stake in Frost Pharmaceuticals, 41% of the company, was left to a family trust. Equal votes for Damien, Cassandra, and Julian. Decisions required at least two of them to agree, forcing them to work together. She planned this, Cassandra said, reading the documents. She knew we'd fight if one person had control, so she made sure we'd have to cooperate. Classic mother, Julian agreed, manipulating us even from beyond the grave. But there was more. A letter, sealed, addressed to all three of them. The lawyer handed it over. Damien opened it. Read it aloud. My dear children, all three of you, because yes, Damien, you became my son in every way that matters. I'm writing this a week before I died. I know the end is close. The doctors have stopped pretending otherwise. I have many regrets. I wish I'd been a better mother to Cassandra and Julian. I wish I'd prioritized you both more, shown you that you mattered more than the company. I wish I'd taught you earlier what I'm teaching you now. That legacy isn't about money or power. It's about the lives you touch, the good you do, the world you leave behind. Damien, thank you for giving me the chance to make things right. Thank you for seeing past my mistakes to the person I was trying to become. Thank you for loving me, despite everything. You made my last years the happiest of my life. Cassandra, you are so much stronger than you realize. You inherited my drive and your father's heart. Use both. Lead with compassion, but don't be afraid to be ruthless when necessary. The company needs both sides of you. Julian, you spent so long trying to prove yourself to me. You don't have to anymore. You're brilliant. You're capable. You made mistakes, as did I. But you owned them. You fought to make them right. That's all anyone can ask. I'm leaving you three the company because you're finally ready for it. Not one of you alone. Together, you'll be unstoppable. Trust each other. Support each other. Remember that you're family, not just business partners. And most importantly, make sure the work continues. Fix synaptrol completely. Find cures for the diseases that still devastate lives. Use this company the way Gregory and I always dreamed it would be used, to make the world better. I love you all, even when I didn't show it, even when I was too focused on business to say it. I always loved you. Now go prove me right. Build something extraordinary. Mother, Vivienne. The room was silent except for the sound of Cassandra quietly crying. Julian had his head in his hands. Damien carefully folded the letter, his own eyes wet. So, Cassandra said finally, wiping her eyes, we're stuck with each other. Looks like it, Julian agreed. Can we do this? Actually work together? We'd better. Damien managed a small smile. She'll haunt us if we screw this up. Absolutely she will, Julian said. And then surprisingly, he laughed. Remember when we all hated each other? That was only 2 years ago. I remember trying to have you killed, Cassandra said to Damien. You what? Julian turned to his sister. Not personally. I hired someone to investigate. They suggested permanent solutions. I declined, obviously. Obviously, Damien said dryly, since I'm still alive. And I tried to have you discredited, Julian added. Conspired with Laurent, tried to destroy Mother's reputation, and yours. I remember, Damien said. You nearly succeeded. So we all tried to destroy each other at various points. That's a bonding experience. They stared at each other, and then somehow they were all laughing. Real, genuine laughter that felt like grief and relief and exhaustion, all mixed together. She'd love this, Cassandra said. She'd love that we're finally getting along because she's not here to interfere. She probably planned it this way, Julian agreed. Definitely planned it this way, Damien said. She told me once that the three of us would either kill each other or become the most powerful business alliance in the world. There was no middle ground. Then I guess we should aim for option 2, Cassandra said. For Mother, for Dad, for the company. And for Isabel, Damien added. My mother. Your mother's friend. The woman whose work started all of this. For Isabel, they echoed. Margaret Frost Beaumont's arrival shattered everything the family thought they knew about Vivienne, and the truth she carried would reveal the deepest secret of all, the real reason Vivienne had spent 40 years building an empire. Margaret sat in the chair across from Vivienne's old desk, her posture perfect, her hands steady as she laid out the documents. Damien, Cassandra, and Julian stood around her, none of them willing to sit, all of them too shocked to speak. I was born in 1963, Margaret began, her voice calm and measured, in a private hospital in Lausanne. My mother was 23 years old, unmarried, working as a secretary for a small pharmaceutical company. She couldn't keep me. That's what the adoption papers say, at least. She pushed the first document across the desk. A birth certificate. Mother's name. Vivienne Laurent. Her maiden name. Father's name. Blank. Cassandra picked it up with trembling hands. This could be fake. Anyone could. There's more. Margaret laid out more documents. Medical records from the hospital. A letter. Yellowed with age, written in Vivienne's distinctive handwriting. Photographs of a young Vivienne, visibly pregnant, her face a mixture of fear and determination. I was adopted by Robert and Catherine Beaumont, Margaret continued. Good people, wealthy. They gave me everything. I grew up in Paris, went to the Sorbonne, married well, had children of my own. I had a good life, but I always knew I was adopted. And when my adoptive parents died 5 years ago, they left me these documents, the truth about who my biological mother was. Why wait until now? Julian's voice was hard, suspicious. Mother died 5 years ago. You could have come forward then. I didn't want her money. I didn't need it. I have my own fortune. My husband's family owns hotels across Europe. You might have heard of them. The Beaumonts. Damien's head snapped up. Laurent Beaumont is your husband? Was. We divorced 3 years ago. But yes, the same Laurent Beaumont who tried to destroy this company, who conspired with Julian to take down Vivienne. Margaret's smile was thin. I didn't know about any of that until after our divorce. Laurent kept his business dealings separate from our marriage. When I found out what he'd done, what he'd tried to do to my biological mother, I was horrified. So you're here for revenge on your ex-husband? Cassandra's eyes narrowed. No, I'm here because I recently learned something else, something that changes everything. Margaret pulled out one final document, a DNA test result. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with the same genetic markers that make synaptrol dangerous, the 3%. I needed medical records, family history, to help my doctors develop a treatment plan. So I had my DNA tested and compared it to samples in the Frost Pharmaceuticals database. Yes, I have connections in the industry, and I discovered something unexpected. She pushed the DNA results toward them. I'm not just Vivienne's daughter from a youthful mistake. I'm Gregory Frost's daughter too. The room went dead silent. That's impossible, Cassandra whispered. Our parents didn't meet until 1965, when Vivienne was hired as his secretary. That's the official story. Margaret's voice was gentle now, understanding their shock. But the truth is, they met in 1962. Vivienne was working at a small pharmaceutical company. Gregory was visiting from America, scouting European research facilities. They had an affair, brief, passionate. Vivienne got pregnant. Gregory was married at the time, his first wife, who died of cancer in 1964. He couldn't acknowledge the child. Vivienne couldn't keep me and maintain her career. So I was given up for adoption. And 2 years later, when Gregory's wife died, he found Vivienne again, hired her, eventually married her. You're our sister, Julian said, his voice hollow. Half-sister, yes. Cassandra sank into a chair, her face pale. Mother never said anything, never even hinted. She was protecting me and protecting herself. Think about it. If anyone had known that Gregory Frost had fathered an illegitimate child while married to his first wife, the scandal would have destroyed them both. This was the 1960s. Society was less forgiving. And Vivienne was trying to build a career in a male-dominated industry. An unwed mother? She'd have been unemployable. So she gave you away, Damien said softly, and spent the rest of her life building an empire. I think, Margaret paused, choosing her words carefully. I think she built that empire partially out of guilt. She gave away her first child to pursue her career. She married the father of that child and had two more children with him. But she never forgot me. She never stopped feeling guilty about the choice she made. How do you know? Cassandra's voice was sharp with pain. Margaret pulled out the letter, the one in Vivienne's handwriting. She wrote to me, once, when I turned 18. The letter was held by her lawyers, delivered to my adoptive parents, who gave it to me. I'll read part of it. She unfolded the letter carefully, her voice steady as she read, "My darling daughter, I don't have the right to call you that. I gave up that right 23 years ago when I signed the adoption papers. But you were my daughter then, and you're my daughter now, even if you never know me. I hope your life has been happy. I hope the Beaumonts loved you the way I couldn't. I hope you never felt abandoned or unwanted, because you were wanted. So wanted. But I was 23 and terrified and alone, and I made the only choice I thought I could make. By the time you read this, you'll be an adult. You'll have your own life, your own dreams. I won't intrude on that. But I wanted you to know the truth. Your father was a good man. Brilliant, kind, complicated. He would have loved you if circumstances had been different. I loved you. I still love you. I think about you every day. You have two siblings, Cassandra and Julian. They don't know about you. I'm not sure if I'll ever tell them. But know that they exist. Know that you're part of a family, even if that family doesn't know you're part of it. I've built a successful company. I've made more money than I ever dreamed possible. But none of it means anything compared to you. You were my first child, my first love, my biggest sacrifice, and my greatest regret. Be happy, be strong, be everything I wasn't brave enough to be. With all my love, Vivienne. Margaret folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down her face. I didn't come here for money or recognition. I came because I'm sick. The genetic markers, I need access to the latest research, the experimental treatments you're developing. And I thought maybe my siblings would want to know I exist, that I'm real, that I was loved, even if I was given away. Cassandra stood abruptly, crossed the room, and pulled Margaret into a fierce embrace. You're our sister. Of course we want to know you. Julian joined them, his own face wet with tears. Mother kept so many secrets, but this one I understand, and I'm glad you're here. Damien watched the three siblings, now four, hold each other and cry, and he felt something shift in his chest. This was what Vivienne had wanted all along. Family. Real family. Not defined by blood alone, but by choice, by forgiveness, by love. Welcome home, Margaret, he said quietly. But Margaret's arrival opened up another mystery, one that connected directly to Laurent Beaumont's vendetta against Vivienne. And the truth would reveal that nothing in this story had been coincidence. They reconvened an hour later in Vivienne's private conference room, after Margaret had been shown to a guest suite and given time to compose herself. Coffee was served, documents were spread across the table, and slowly, the pieces of a much larger puzzle began to fit together. I need to tell you something about Laurent, Margaret began. Something I discovered during our divorce proceedings. It's connected to all of this, to Vivienne, to this company, to everything. We're listening, Damien said. Laurent's mother, Victoria Beaumont, the hotel heiress, was Vivienne's best friend. You all knew that. They'd known each other for 40 years. But what you might not know is that Victoria was there the night I was born. Cassandra's eyes widened. What? Victoria was Vivienne's only confidant, the only person who knew about the pregnancy, about Gregory being the father. Victoria helped arrange the adoption. She helped Vivienne hide everything, and she kept that secret for 60 years. Then why would Laurent attack Vivienne? Julian asked. If his mother was her closest friend, because Laurent found out the truth about me, about the adoption, and he found out something else, something Vivienne never knew. Margaret took a deep breath. Victoria Beaumont was in love with Gregory Frost, had been since they first met in the 1960s. She never acted on it. Gregory married Vivienne, and Victoria remained loyal to their friendship. But she loved him her entire life. And when she discovered that Gregory had fathered a child with Vivienne before they were even officially together, she was devastated. So she helped with the adoption out of love for Gregory, Cassandra said slowly. She wanted to make the problem go away so he could marry his first wife without scandal. Exactly. And for 40 years, she kept that secret. But she also resented Vivienne for having what Victoria wanted: Gregory's love, his children, his legacy. That resentment festered, and when Victoria got dementia 3 years ago, she started talking, rambling, revealing secrets to Laurent that she'd kept hidden for decades. Laurent found out his mother had been in love with Gregory Frost, Damien said, understanding dawning, and he found out about you. More than that, he found out that Victoria had manipulated the adoption process. The Beaumonts, Robert and Catherine, were Victoria's cousins. She'd arranged for them to adopt me specifically. She wanted to keep tabs on me, on Vivienne's secret. She wanted leverage over Vivienne if she ever needed it. That's why Laurent married you, Julian said, his voice cold. He found out who you really were. Margaret nodded, fresh tears streaming. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until after we divorced and I found his private files. But yes, Laurent married me specifically because I was Vivienne Frost's secret daughter. He thought that information would give him power over her. He planned to use me as leverage in business dealings. And when I didn't, when I knew nothing about Vivienne or Frost Pharmaceuticals, he kept me in the dark and looked for other ways to destroy her company. The hostile takeover attempt, Cassandra said, it wasn't just business, it was personal. Everything with Laurent was personal. He blamed Vivienne for his mother's unhappiness. He blamed Gregory for not choosing Victoria. He blamed this entire family for existing when his mother had loved Gregory and been rejected. Margaret wiped her eyes. And when Vivienne married Damien, when she brought in the son of Isabelle Duchamp, the woman whose research Victoria had told Laurent about, the woman Vivienne had allegedly destroyed, Laurent saw his chance. He could turn Vivienne's own history against her, use her past mistakes to bring down her empire. But it didn't work, Damien said, because Vivienne told the truth first. She owned her mistakes publicly before Laurent could use them as weapons, which made him even more desperate, even more determined to destroy her. Margaret looked at each of them. I'm telling you this because Laurent isn't done. Even now, years after Vivienne's death, he's still plotting. He's contacted me twice in the past 6 months, trying to get me to contest the will, to claim my share as Vivienne's biological daughter. He wants to fracture this family from the inside. Why tell us this? Julian asked. Why warn us? Laurent is your ex-husband, but he's also the father of your children. Because my children deserve better than a father who's consumed by revenge. Because I spent too many years unknowingly married to a man who used me as a pawn. And because, Margaret's voice strengthened, because I'm a Frost. I didn't grow up as one, but I am one. And Frosts protect family. Cassandra smiled, genuine and warm. Yes, we do. Laurent Beaumont had spent 5 years planning his ultimate revenge. But he'd made one critical error. He'd underestimated the Frost family's ability to come together when threatened, and that mistake would cost him everything. The confrontation happened at Victoria Beaumont's funeral. The old woman had finally succumbed to dementia-related complications, dying peacefully in her sleep at 75. Despite everything, Vivienne would have wanted to pay respects. Victoria had been her friend for most of her life, complications notwithstanding. So the Frost family attended in force. Damien, Cassandra, Julian, and Margaret standing together at the graveside service in Paris. Laurent stood across from them, his face a mask of grief that didn't quite reach his eyes. After the service, he approached them. Margaret, children, and Damien, the boy toy who inherited an empire. Laurent, Damien's voice was cold. We're sorry for your loss. Are you? My mother spent her final years in confusion, reliving old memories, old loves. It was heartbreaking. Laurent's smile was sharp, but illuminating. She told me so many interesting stories about Gregory, about Vivienne, about secrets that shaped all our lives. We know, Margaret said quietly. I told them everything. Laurent's smile faltered. Did you? Well, that's unfortunate. I was hoping to control how that information came out. You don't control anything anymore, Cassandra said. Her voice had Vivienne's steel. We know about your mother's feelings for our father. We know about the adoption manipulation. We know about your attempts to use Margaret as leverage. All of it. And we know about your current plans, Julian added. Your lawyers have been quietly buying up Frost Pharmaceutical's stock through shell companies. You're preparing another takeover attempt. Laurent's expression hardened. You can't prove that. Actually, we can. Damien pulled out his phone, displayed a series of documents. We've been tracking your purchases for 6 months. We have paper trails linking your shell companies to your personal accounts. We have recorded conversations with brokers who've been facilitating your trades. We have everything. And we're prepared to go public with all of it, Cassandra continued. Securities fraud, market manipulation, conspiracy. You'll be investigated by every regulatory agency in Europe and America. You'll lose your fortune. You'll likely go to prison. Unless, Margaret said, and all eyes turned to her. Unless you stop, right now. Sell back your shares at market price. Walk away from Frost Pharmaceuticals. Walk away from this vendetta. And never contact any of us again. And if I don't? Laurent's voice was dangerous. Then we destroy you, Margaret said simply. The same way you tried to destroy my family. We have more resources, more lawyers, more evidence. We will bury you, Laurent, completely. And our children, your children, will grow up knowing their father was a criminal consumed by revenge. The threat hung in the air, like smoke. Laurent looked at each of them. These four people who should have been easy targets, who should have been divided and weak. Instead, they stood, united, unbreakable. He'd lost, and he knew it. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll sell the shares. I'll stay away from your company. But know this, my mother deserved better than a lifetime of unrequited love." Gregory Frost used her friendship with Vivienne to keep Victoria close, to maintain a connection to the woman he'd truly loved. He was cruel, and Vivienne let it happen. "Our parents were complicated people who made complicated choices," Julian said. "Just like everyone. Just like you. The difference is, we've learned from their mistakes. Have you?" Laurent didn't answer. He simply turned and walked away, his back rigid with defeated pride. The Frost siblings watched him go. "Do you think he'll actually stay away?" Margaret asked. "He will," Damien said confidently, "because he's a businessman above all else, and business tells him he's outmatched. He'll cut his losses and move on." "Mother would have enjoyed this," Cassandra said softly. "Four of us, standing together against someone who tried to destroy her legacy. This is what she wanted, what she worked for." "She mentioned something once," Damien said, remembering. "Near the end, she said that empires aren't built by individuals. They're built by families who understand that strength comes from unity, not division." "She was right," Margaret said. "I spent 60 years not knowing I had siblings, not knowing I was part of something bigger than myself. I won't waste whatever time I have left." "Speaking of time," Julian turned to Margaret, "your genetic markers, the synaptrol incompatibility. We have a new experimental treatment. It's not perfect yet, but the early results are promising. If you're willing to try it—" "I'll try anything," Margaret said immediately. "That's part of why I came here. For the medical access, yes. But also," she smiled, "also because I wanted to know my family before I died. And now I do. So whatever happens, I'm grateful." "You're not dying," Cassandra said fiercely. "We just found you. You don't get to leave us yet." "I'll do my best," Margaret promised. Margaret's treatment became a family affair. And in fighting for her life, the Frost siblings discovered what Vivienne had known all along, that some things matter more than money, power, or revenge. The experimental treatment was grueling. Gene therapy combined with targeted medication, designed to neutralize the genetic markers that made synaptrol and similar drugs dangerous. Margaret moved into one of the guest houses on the Frost estate in Geneva, the same property where Vivienne had lived her final years. Damien had kept the estate, unable to sell the place where he'd spent his last months with Vivienne. Now, it became a gathering place for all of them. Cassandra flew in from New York every 2 weeks, bringing her children, Vivienne's grandchildren, to meet their newly discovered aunt. Julian relocated from London temporarily, working remotely while helping coordinate Margaret's care. And Damien oversaw it all, working with his research team to adjust the treatment protocol as Margaret's body responded. "How are you feeling?" Cassandra asked one afternoon, sitting beside Margaret's bed. The treatment had left Margaret weak, exhausted, but the early signs were positive. "Like I've been hit by a truck," Margaret admitted, "but alive, definitely alive." "Good, because we're planning Thanksgiving dinner next month, and you're not allowed to miss it. Julian's cooking, which should be terrifying, and my kids want to hear more stories about their grandmother. I didn't know Vivienne well, Margaret said. I only met her once, accidentally, about 10 years ago at a charity gala. I didn't know who she was then, who she was to me. We spoke briefly. She complimented my dress, asked about my work. She seemed intense, brilliant, a little scary. That's an accurate description, Cassandra laughed. She was terrifying, but also capable of moments of unexpected warmth. She wasn't good at showing emotion, but when she did, when she let her guard down, you could see how deeply she felt things. Do you think she ever regretted giving me up? Every day, Cassandra said without hesitation. I found journals after she died, private ones. She wrote about you, about wondering who you'd become, about hoping you were happy, about wishing she'd been brave enough to keep you, or at least to know you. Why didn't she reach out? When I was an adult, after her letter, she knew where I was. Fear, probably. Fear that you hated her. Fear that she'd disrupt your life. Fear that you wouldn't want to know her. Cassandra squeezed Margaret's hand. Mother was brave in business, ruthless, fearless, but in personal relationships, she was terrified. She'd lost so much. Her first child, her husband, nearly lost Julian and me because of her own choices. I think she didn't reach out because she couldn't bear another rejection. I wouldn't have rejected her. She didn't know that, and she never gave herself, or you, the chance to find out. That's the tragedy. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Cassandra, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you resent me for existing, for being another heir to split the fortune with? Cassandra laughed, sharp and genuine. Margaret, I'm worth $3 billion personally. Julian's worth about the same. The fortune is vast enough that adding another heir doesn't change anything material. And even if it did, you're family. You're my sister. That matters more than money. I'm glad, Margaret said softly. I spent 60 years as an only child. I always wanted siblings. Well, now you have 3 of us. 4, if you count Damien, which we do. Welcome to the chaos. The treatment worked. Against the odds, against the statistics, Margaret's genetic markers stabilized. But the real miracle wasn't medical. It was the family that had formed around her. Thanksgiving dinner was held in the estate's formal dining room, the same room where Vivienne had hosted that disastrous family dinner years ago. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Margaret sat at the head of the table, Vivienne's old seat, with Damien, Cassandra, Julian, and their various children and partners around her. 18 people total. The noise level was chaotic, joyful. Julian's cooking turned out to be surprisingly good. I had to learn when I was living alone in Paris, he explained. Otherwise, I'd have starved. Or eaten at restaurants every night like a normal billionaire, Cassandra teased. Where's the fun in that? The children, ranging from ages 8 to 17, peppered Margaret with questions about her life, her work, her memories. She answered patiently, telling stories about growing up in Paris, about her career as an art dealer, about her own children who couldn't make it this year, but who she'd introduce to their cousins soon. Grandmother would have loved this, one of Cassandra's daughters said. Mum told me she always wanted big family dinners, but that Uncle Julian and Aunt Cass were too busy fighting. We've gotten better, Julian said dryly. Mostly. Only because Damien mediates, Cassandra shot back. And because Mother left us a company that requires cooperation, Julian added. Hard to fight when you need each other's votes for every major decision. She was smarter than us, Damien said. Always was. To Vivienne, Margaret raised her glass. The woman who gave me life twice, once at birth and once when she built the research that saved me. To Vivienne, they echoed. After dinner, after the children had scattered to various entertainment options and the adults lingered over wine, Damien pulled out an envelope. I found this in Vivienne's things last week, he said. It's dated 3 weeks before she died. It's addressed to all of us, including you, Margaret, even though she didn't know you'd come into our lives. He opened it carefully, pulled out a letter in Vivienne's shaky handwriting. My dear family, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope it was peaceful. I hope I managed to die with some dignity. Though knowing cancer, that's probably wishful thinking. I'm writing this because there are things I never said while alive. Things I was too proud or too afraid to say. Cassandra, you are so much stronger than I ever was. You have my drive, but your father's heart. Don't lose that. Don't become so focused on success that you forget to be kind. I made that mistake. Don't repeat it. Julian, you spent so long trying to prove yourself to me. You don't need to anymore. You're brilliant. You're capable. And you're finally learning that strength isn't about domination. It's about cooperation. Keep learning that lesson. Damien, you gave me something I didn't deserve. A second chance. A chance to fix my mistakes. A chance to honor Isabel's memory. A chance to love and be loved at the end of my life. Thank you. Take care of my company. Take care of my children. Take care of yourself. And if Margaret is reading this, if my secret daughter somehow found her way to this family after I'm gone, know that giving you up was the hardest thing I ever did. I thought about you every day, every single day, for 60 years. I hope you had a happy life. I hope the Beaumonts loved you well. And I hope you can forgive a young woman who made an impossible choice and regretted it forever. To all of you, family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's commitment. It's showing up even when it's hard. It's forgiveness. It's love. You four are my legacy. Not the company, not the money, you. The family you'll build together. The good you'll do in the world. The way you'll honor both the Frost name and the Duchamp name and whatever names you choose to carry forward. Be good to each other. Be honest. Be brave. And remember that I loved you all, even when I was terrible at showing it. With all my love, Vivienne P.S. Damien. There's a bottle of 1947 Chateau d'Yquem in the wine cellar. I've been saving it for a special occasion. I think finding out you have a sister, Margaret's arrival, qualifies. Drink it together, celebrate, and think of me, just a little. The room was silent, except for quiet crying. She knew, Margaret whispered. Somehow, she knew I'd come. Or hoped, Damien said. She always was an optimist, underneath all that cynicism. Should we get the wine? Julian asked. Absolutely, Cassandra said. They retrieved the bottle, a dessert wine so rare that only a few bottles existed in the world, worth tens of thousands of dollars. Vivienne had owned it for 40 years, waiting for the right moment. Damien poured carefully. They raised their glasses. To Vivienne Frost, Damien said, who was complicated, difficult, brilliant, and flawed, who made terrible mistakes and spent years fixing them, who built an empire and a family, not necessarily in that order, who loved us all, even when she didn't know how to show it. To Vivienne, they said together, the wine was extraordinary, sweet and complex and perfect. She had good taste, Margaret said. In everything except men, Cassandra said. First our father, who was twice her age when they met. Then Damien, who was half her age when they married. Hey, Damien protested, I'm just saying, Mother's taste in romantic partners was questionable. Her taste in everything else was impeccable. They laughed, and it felt good. It felt like healing. 1 year after Margaret's arrival, the Frost Family Trust held a special meeting, not about business this time, about something far more important, defining what the Frost legacy would actually mean. The meeting was held not in an office, but in Vivienne's garden, the place where she'd married Damien the second time, the place where she'd found peace in her final years. The four of them sat around a table, looking at a proposal Damien had drafted. The Frost Foundation, he said, a charitable trust, funded with 50% of our personal fortunes, dedicated to medical research, specifically neurological conditions. We'd fund research into Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, brain cancer, all the diseases that have touched our family. That's billions of dollars, Julian said. Yes, and we'd still be billionaires afterward, just less obscenely wealthy ones. Mother would approve, Cassandra said. She spent her final years trying to fix her mistakes. This continues that mission. I'm in, Margaret said immediately. I don't need billions. My children are already provided for. If we can fund research that saves others from going through what I went through, what Vivienne went through, that matters more than accumulating wealth. Agreed, Julian said. Then we're unanimous, Cassandra said. The Frost Foundation launches next year. We'll need to hire staff, set up grant programs, establish partnerships with research institutions. I'll handle that, Margaret volunteered. I have experience with charitable foundations through my art-dealing work. And frankly, I need a project. I'm healthy now, thanks to all of you. I want to use that health to help others. Then it's settled. Damien stood. We're officially turning the Frost family legacy from empire building to empire giving. Mother would be proud. More than proud, Julian said. This is what she wanted all along. She just took the long way to get here. The scenic route, Cassandra agreed. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning, dreaming, imagining the good they could do. Research grants for young scientists, funding for clinical trials, scholarships for medical students from disadvantaged backgrounds, support for families dealing with neurological diseases. It was ambitious. It was complicated. It would take years to build properly. But they had time. They had resources. They had each other. And they had Vivienne's example, both the mistakes and the redemption, to guide them. 10 years after Vivienne's death, Damien stood at her grave and told her about everything that had happened. And in that moment, he finally understood what she'd been trying to teach him all along. The cemetery was quiet in the early morning. Mist rising from the ground, the sun just beginning to burn through. Damien visited every year on the anniversary of Vivienne's death. Sometimes others came with him. Cassandra, Julian, Margaret, the children. But this year, he'd come alone. He stood before the simple gravestone. Vivienne had insisted on simplicity. No massive monument, No ostentatious display. Just her name, her dates, and one line. She tried to do better. "Hey," Damien said softly, as if she could hear him. Maybe she could. He didn't know what he believed about that. "It's been 10 years. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." He settled onto the grass, leaning against the gravestone. "I'm 44 now. Not exactly the young rebel you married anymore. Got some grey hair. Margaret says it makes me look distinguished. I think it makes me look tired." He smiled. "The company's doing well. Better than well, actually. We're the most profitable pharmaceutical company in the world, and also the most ethical, which turns out aren't mutually exclusive, despite what all those cynics thought. Synaptrol 2.0 is saving millions of lives with zero adverse effects. We're close to FDA approval on the Alzheimer's treatment, and Julian's team just had a breakthrough on ALS research." He paused, picking at the grass. "Your children are remarkable, you know. Cassandra just opened our 100th free clinic in underserved communities worldwide. Julian's mentoring the next generation of researchers. Turns out he's an incredible teacher when he stops being competitive. And Margaret," he laughed. "Margaret's become the heart of this family in ways I never expected. She's tireless with the foundation work. She's brought us all closer together." A bird sang somewhere nearby. The sun climbed higher. "I miss you," Damien said quietly. "I know that's probably selfish. You were sick. You were tired. You're at peace now. But I miss you anyway. I miss your sharp wit. I miss the way you'd look at a problem and see solutions everyone else missed. I miss the way you'd pretend to be cold and ruthless, but would secretly donate millions to causes you believed in. I miss your hand in mine." He wiped his eyes. "I've dated, by the way. You'd probably want to know that. Nothing serious. It's hard to—" He laughed, a little bitter. "It's hard to fall in love with someone normal after being married to Vivienne Frost. Everyone seems boring by comparison. Margaret says I'm being ridiculous, that you'd want me to be happy, that you'd hate the thought of me being alone forever. She's probably right. There's someone, actually, a scientist, brilliant, funny, closer to my age. She's 41. Her name is Dr. Elena Rodriguez. She's leading our ALS research team. We've been having coffee, talking. It's not serious yet, but—" He smiled. "It could be, if I let it." Another pause. "I think I'm ready to let it, to move forward. Not to forget you. I'll never forget you. But to build something new. Something that honors what we had without being trapped by it." He stood, brushed grass from his pants. "Your grandchildren are growing up amazing, by the way. Smart, kind, committed to doing good in the world. Cassandra's oldest just started medical school. Julian's twins are studying neuroscience. Margaret's children have all gotten involved with the foundation work. You'd be so proud of them. And they know you, through our stories, through the company you built, through the values you taught us, sometimes by example, sometimes by showing us what not to do." He smiled. "They know their grandmother was complicated, that she've made mistakes, that she spent years fixing those mistakes, that she loved fiercely even when she couldn't show it, that she built something that mattered." He touched the gravestone gently. "Thank you for everything, for giving me the chance to honor my mother's work, for teaching me that revenge is empty, but redemption is possible, for showing me that love doesn't follow rules about age or circumstances or what other people think. For being exactly who you were, flawed and brilliant and absolutely unforgettable. He started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and one more thing. Laurent died last year. Heart attack. He'd lost most of his fortune through bad investments after we beat him. Died alone and bitter. Margaret didn't even go to the funeral. She said some people choose to live in their anger, and there's nothing anyone can do to save them from themselves. I think she learned that from you. Anyway, I'll come back next year. Probably bring Elena if things work out. You'd like her. She reminds me of you, actually. Scary smart. No patience for nonsense. Completely dedicated to her work. And when she smiles, really smiles, it lights up the whole room. He walked away slowly, feeling lighter somehow. The morning mist was clearing. The sun was bright and warm. Behind him, if gravestones could speak, Vivienne's might have whispered, "Be happy, darling. You earned it." The Frost legacy didn't end with Vivienne's death. It evolved. It grew. It became something bigger than any one person. And 20 years after that scandalous wedding, the story came full circle in the most unexpected way. The Frost Morgan Institute for Neurological Research stood on the shores of Lake Geneva, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that housed 300 of the world's best researchers. Founded by Damien and funded by the Frost Foundation, it had become the premier center for brain disease research globally. Today, the Institute was celebrating its 15th anniversary with a gala attended by scientists, philanthropists, politicians, and patients whose lives had been saved by research conducted within its walls. Damien stood at the podium, now 54, his hair silver, but his mind as sharp as ever. Beside him stood Dr. Elena Rodriguez Morgan, his wife of 12 years, still brilliant, still tireless in her ALS research. Behind them, a massive portrait of Vivienne Frost and Isabelle Duchamp, the two women whose work had inspired everything. 25 years ago, Damien began. A 65-year-old billionaire married a 29-year-old man, and the world called her crazy. They called it a scandal, a mistake, a cautionary tale. Scattered laughter from the audience. They were wrong. That marriage, built initially on strategy and revenge, became something neither of us expected. A partnership, a friendship, eventually a real love that defied conventions and expectations. He gestured to the portrait behind him. Vivienne Frost and Isabelle Duchamp never got the chance to work together. They should have. They were both brilliant. They were both dedicated to using science to help people. But circumstances, choices, and mistakes kept them apart, and both of them spent years regretting what might have been. This institute exists because their children, biological and chosen, decided to honor both women's legacies properly, to do what they couldn't, to work together instead of against each other, to choose cooperation over competition, to choose people over profit. He smiled. In the 20 years since this institute's founding work began, we've developed 12 breakthrough treatments. We've trained 300 young researchers. We've published over 2,000 peer-reviewed papers. We've changed how the world approaches neurological disease. And we've saved, conservatively estimated, over 2 million lives. Applause rippled through the audience. But the real measure of success isn't in numbers. It's in the woman sitting in the front row. He gestured to Margaret, now 85, but still vibrant, healthy, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, who should have died from a genetic condition, but lived because we developed a treatment. It's in the young man in the third row who got his grandfather back for 5 more years because our Alzheimer's research gave them time they wouldn't have had. It's in every person in this room who either benefited from our research or whose loved ones did. Vivienne used to say that empires aren't built by individuals. They're built by families, not just blood family, but chosen family. People who decide to work together towards something bigger than themselves. He looked at his family, Cassandra and Julian and Margaret and Elena and all their children and grandchildren. 3 generations now, all present. This is our empire. Not money, not power, not buildings or stock prices. People, lives saved. Future generations who will benefit from research we're doing now. That's the Frost legacy. That's what Vivienne and Isabel both wanted. And that's what we'll keep building for as long as we're able. He raised his glass. To Vivienne Frost, who was 65, a billionaire, and she married a boy half her age. Not because she was crazy, not because she was desperate, but because she was brilliant enough to see past convention to possibility, because she was brave enough to risk everything for a chance at redemption, and because she loved fiercely, honestly, and without apology. And to Isabelle Duchamp, whose dream of helping people through science lives on in every researcher in this building, every treatment we develop, every life we save. And to all of us, the messy, complicated, chosen family that rose from their ashes, may we continue to do them proud. The room erupted in applause. Elena squeezed his hand. Beautiful speech. Think they bought it? I think, she smiled, I think Vivienne would have been proud, and maybe a little annoyed that you made her sound too noble. She'd want you to mention the part where she was also terrifying and impossible. That's implied in the without apology part. Margaret approached, leaning on a cane, but moving steadily. That was lovely, Damien. Thank you for including Isabel. She deserved recognition. Long overdue, he agreed. Grandmother would have liked this, one of Cassandra's daughters said, gesturing to the party around them. All of us together, fighting for something good, making a difference. She would have, Cassandra agreed, though she probably would have criticized the catering and reorganized the seating chart. Undoubtedly, Julian laughed. They stood together, 3 generations of Frosts and Morgans and Duchamp, bound not by blood alone, but by shared purpose, by commitment to using their resources for good, by the understanding that real legacy isn't measured in dollars, but in lives touched and made better. Somewhere, in whatever comes after, perhaps Vivienne and Isabel watched and smiled. 2 brilliant women who'd been kept apart by circumstance, by mistakes, by the cruelty of corporate culture that pitted them against each other instead of letting them collaborate. Their children had fixed that, had brought their visions together, had built something extraordinary from the ashes of old conflicts. And in a world that still loved to whisper about that scandalous marriage, the 65-year-old billionaire and the 29-year-old man, the truth was simpler and more profound than any scandal. Sometimes love really does conquer all. Sometimes revenge transforms into redemption. Sometimes broken families heal. Sometimes the most unexpected partnerships change the world. And sometimes, just sometimes, a marriage that started as strategy becomes the most real thing either person ever experienced. Vivienne Frost had been 65, a billionaire, and she'd married a boy half her age. Not for money, not for scandal, not even, initially, for love, but for a chance to make things right, to honor a friend's memory, to fix mistakes decades old. And in doing so, she'd built something that would outlast her by generations. That was her real legacy. Not the empire, not the wealth, not even the company, the family, the love, the good done in the world. And that was worth everything. 25 years after that shocking wedding, after all the scandal and secrets and struggles, the Frost family legacy stood as proof that redemption is possible, that love transcends age and circumstance, that families, both born and chosen, are worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most scandalous choice is the one that saves everyone. Vivienne Frost married Damien Cole Morgan when she was 65 and he was 29. The world called her crazy, history called her visionary, her family called her mother, and Damien, he called her the love of his life, and that ultimately was all that mattered. If you loved this epic tale of power, redemption, secrets, and love that defied all expectations, subscribe for more dramatic stories that prove truth is stranger than fiction and love knows no boundaries. The Frost family saga may be complete, but there are countless other stories of billionaires, secrets, and the complicated relationships that define us all. Don't miss what comes next.